How was that? Woo! I was saying backstage we could listen to AA all day, but we will see them a little bit later, I hope. Welcome, heritage lovers. How are you doing? Yeah? Please also, before them, our amazing quartet, including Philippe Chow, Danielle Cho. We also had Jennifer Park Kim and Regina Madrid. Give them a big round of applause. Also, A one more time. Yep. And of course, somebody who's very familiar to our community, Les the DJ. I know that in each and every one of the seats that are here in this great hall represents journeys from far places and close places, both personal and far. And on behalf of the initiative, welcome to all of you to Washington, D.C. Happy Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month to all of you. Today's program, Lasting Legacies, is a community-wide celebration of AA and NHPI heritage and history. This is, can you believe it, 25 years in the making. Happy birthday to the initiative, huh? As we all like to say, you don't look a day over 15. Asian don't raisin. And to all of you joining us virtually today, thank you as well for joining us. My name is Richard Louie, news anchor from MSNBC and NBC News. I'm honored to be with you here today for what will be a great program. To kick off today's official program, please welcome our next performer, singer, songwriter, actress, and runner-up from America's Got Talent, Angelica Hale. And if you're able to, please rise for the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regular, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Oh my gosh, Angelica. Woo! Yes. That concludes our programming for the day. Not to worry, a lot more. In fact, I am a little awestruck. In fact, I'm a lot awestruck as I get to introduce our co-chairs of the White House Initiative on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. First up, I'd like to have all of you give a warm welcome to a longtime member of our community and a co-chair of the White House Initiative, Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra.
Richard looks younger every time I see him. It's a pretty good thing. I don't know, maybe it's because I could only go one octave with real difficulty, but what Angelica just did was amazing. Can we just give her one more round of applause? One of these days she'll actually be an adult, but right now she's kicking butt just as a teenager. What an amazing voice, and thank you, Angelica, for treating us to that rendition of the United States national anthem. Can I just say, it's great to see so many of you here. My understanding is we've got a whole bunch of former directors of this initiative and the commission. We've got many of the former commissioners who are here. I remember I was in Congress when President Biden first began the initiative and empaneled the members of the commission. And just to see the growth is tremendous. And the honor to be able to co-chair with Ambassador Tai the work of the initiative, but also working with the commissioners To many of us, it's important. I remember the days when the whole issue of access to care, health care, wasn't really an issue except if you had to go to an emergency room. But when we talked about access to care, we were talking to make sure it was language accessible as well. We were talking about making sure not just linguistically available, but culturally accessible as well. Today, that's infused in everything we do. At HHS, we discuss that by talking about equity must be in the design of everything we do. And so at HHS, if we're going to put forth a proposal, we're going to spend money, equity must be in the design of what we do. Now, I want to give credit especially to the members of the commission and the initiative to WHIAANHPI, because one of the things that we now have in the federal government that perhaps would not have been there had you not pushed is language access. The way you have pushed language access is tremendous. But it's just not the issue of language access, it's also the issue of culturally competent care and having people who have a lived experience in those things. How many here went through the experience of having to translate for their parents when they were visiting a doctor, talking to an attorney, trying to get money from the bank? We were the ones. We were the professionals. We were the translators. That's a lot of responsibility. It's also not fair to put that on us. Everything you have done to move us is to have equity and access, but it's with the flavor that comes from people who experience some of these things. So I want to say how important that is. But let me tell you what also is critical to make sure you're doing this right. And this you need to get credit for as well, whether you knew it or not. Collecting data. If we don't collect enough data, we don't know where folks are and what they're missing. But here's where you really push the envelope. Disaggregating the data. Because it wasn't just collecting the data. It was making sure we could make sense of it. Because until not long ago, we probably weren't even collecting data based on whether you were AA and NHPI or even Latino. That's only been a few decades that we've been doing that. So we could collect a lot of data, but we wouldn't know how to tear it apart and say, but it's a little bit different. Diabetes, does it affect our communities? Yes, it does. We know that. But at what level? And is it the same for a Vietnamese American as it is for a Korean American? Probably not. Disaggregating data, take credit for it, is now what we do more and more because of what you did. And the final thing I want to give you a great deal of credit for, and here I say this to the commissioners who've worked so very hard. Hate crime. Because we always have known that there is always hate out there, and that sometimes it translates to criminal conduct. But more and more we're seeing that hate crime visited on particular individuals because of what they look like or what they sound like. And this is something that this commission has taken with a vengeance to address. And yes, we would still do it because it's a crime, but not the way this administration is doing it. And there I give all of you a great deal of credit, and certainly the commissioners who have really pushed the envelope. I know we have some great champions that are here, including Congresswoman Judy Chu, who it is in her DNA to fight. I know that we have so many of you who were on these commissions, who were the executive directors, but I'm going to close by saying something. All of the work that this administration is doing is because the president wanted us to push the envelope. And I want to thank especially Crystal Kai, the executive director of this commission, because Crystal has made sure that the commissioners of the White House Initiative on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders has pushed the envelope so that whether it's language access, whether it's disaggregation of data, or whether it's making sure we tackle hate crimes, this administration is on top of it. So if you come here to salute and thank the people who have done the work, you're in the right place. We have a 25-year history of doing it. We got work to do still. Don't stop. But I want to thank each and every one of you who are here. And if you were part of this initiative from the very beginning, part of the commission from the very beginning, thank you so much for everything you do. I thank you for being part of this effort. Appreciate your letting me be part of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you again, Mr. Secretary, for all of your years being committed to our community from the very beginning and as well now co-chairing the initiative. I now want to welcome up his co-chair. And they're not only co-chairs, they're also friends for over a decade. They trade travel stories. They also discuss what they've learned in the field by visiting all of us. Please welcome U.S. Trade Representative Ambassador Catherine Tai.
Everyone. Thank you so much, Richard, for that very warm introduction. And I can't believe it's May again, everyone. And you all look gorgeous. And this room is beautiful. And look at the sunshine. It is such an incredible joy for me to be here with all of you today. I want to thank Secretary Becerra, my compatriot, co-chair, friend, also Erica, Crystal, the entire WHIAANHPI team for making this possible yet again. It is also wonderful to share this moment with other AA and NHPI leaders in our administration, Acting Secretary Su, Director Prabhakar, Surgeon General Murthy, DPC Head Neera Tandon, and of course, our very own Vice President Harris. The President has said that his administration will look like America. And not only today, when you look at our administration, do you see that it looks like America? This team is fighting every day for all Americans everywhere. Please know, as part of our community, that we have your back. And that's because every single day we are writing history together. This American story that has carried us to this day and will continue to carry us forward to tomorrow and every tomorrow after that. If you think about the word heritage, it's related to the word inherit. So it's something that's handed down to us that we will hand down to the next generations. In many ways, it's a culmination of stories written by those that came before us to those stories that we are writing today and those that will be written by generations to come. These are the narratives that shape us and connect us. We're also celebrating today the 25th anniversary of the White House Initiative. A quarter century is not a short time. Things have changed, but one constant is that many of you have been in this fight this whole time and for much longer, in fact. As we look to the next 25 years, I want to leave you with 3 thoughts. Remember, refocus, and reframe. First, let's remember our past champions, like Philip Vera Cruz, the Filipino-American labor organizer and farm worker. Mabel Pinghua Lee, the lifelong women's rights activist. Wilhelmina Kakelaokalanini Widman Dowsett. I know I'm going to get that. She is, importantly, the founder of the National Women's Equal Suffrage Association of Hawaii. Representative Dalip Singh Sound and Patsy Mink, the first Asian Americans elected to serve in our Congress. And of course, Secretary Norm Mineta, the first Asian American to serve in the President's cabinet. Their dedication is a foundation for our devotion today. The second idea for all of you is to refocus. Refocus on what we can do now to continue their legacies. Our administration is fighting against anti-AA and NHPI, hate and violence. We are empowering members of our community, our workers and small businesses to succeed, and we are improving language access. And we are pursuing, at my agency, a worker-centered trade policy to deliver more equitable economic outcomes for our communities. And lastly, to reframe our narrative from setback to comeback. I don't have to tell you how much our communities have experienced in the last few years. You all experienced hardships firsthand through the pandemic, and we are collectively still in recovery. There is more that we can do to advance economic justice and fight against bigotry and violence. But I stand here today with all of you, incredibly optimistic, not because the work ahead of us is light, because it's not, but because of all of you, because of how we have overcome in the past and how we will continue to overcome. Time and time again, we've witnessed what we are capable of. In every valley and at every mountaintop, we as a community came together with a collective resolve, one that lifted us up, not because of individual doing, but through unity. And this is what connects all of us here to each other, to our shared past, to our shared future, and to our collective joy. This is our heritage, and I am proud to serve all of you and to serve with you and work with you towards these causes. Thank you very much.
Please welcome the chair of the Domestic Policy Council and Domestic Policy Advisor to the President, Neera Tandon.
Thank you. Hey. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I worked in education for a while, so I feel the need to liven it up. I just really want to say a few words here to express my gratitude. I know a lot of us have expressed gratitude as well, but I just want to add my words. As chair of the President's Domestic Policy Council, we oversee a range of policies, education, healthcare, crime, immigration, and equity overall. And a priority for us is to make sure the government really represents the needs and views of all Americans. And important to me has been ensuring that the voices of the AA and NHPI community are at the table. And I'll just say I'm really thrilled to be here for the 25th anniversary of the White House initiative for AA and NHPI communities, because I was served in the Clinton administration. I'm aging myself a little bit, but I served in the Clinton administration when the White House initiative got started. And I tell this story, but it was such a different time. We used to have staff, all the White House staff, all the Executive Office of the President's staff come together for Asian American Heritage Month. And back then, we could all fit into a corner of the Oval Office. I think we were at like 19 or 20. Irene Bueno was there, she remembers. And now, there is no room that fits all of us in the White House. And that is a tribute to so many people in this room, because let's be honest, our communities have often felt invisible. Invisible by the government, invisible by our leaders. It's taken a while for us to join and be engaged in politics, become leaders in our community. And it's been a lot of work by leaders in this room to ensure that our government truly looks like America and truly reflects the value of every aspect of the AA and NHPI community. And I want to say a heartfelt thanks to all of you. And really, most importantly, each of you represents hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, millions of other people who are not here in this room, but you represent this journey for all of us. And it's not just making sure that we're represented, but I am so proud to be part of an administration led by the president and the vice president who see all of us, who want all of us to be at the table. But it is making our government work better for all Americans. And Secretary Becerra talked about this, and I'll just say one word, which is fundamentally, our work on disaggregating data and language access is really about having a government that sees all of us, that represents all of us, that makes sure all of us have a seat at the table. And that is what we are focused on at the Domestic Policy Council, but also I know fundamentally why the president, the vice president are so committed to ensuring and our voices so that our government truly reflects all of us. Thank you so much.
Please welcome Acting Secretary of Labor, Julie Sue.
Oh my gosh. This is so amazing. Hello, everybody. It's so wonderful to see you all here. I want to say something about humble beginnings. Imagine 25 years ago, some of you who served in the administration when WHIAANHPI was first created, I don't think you could have imagined an event like today, with all the people who are here today in this amazing space. And so our community story is really one about how you can begin from humble beginnings and imagine things that were not possible at the time. And so I really am so excited to be here to celebrate the 25 years of WHIAANHPI, as well as AA and NHPI Heritage Month. I realize it's such a fun month because I get to see so many of you over and over again at a whole bunch of different things. But I did also want to say to Crystal's amazing leadership in this moment in WHIAANHPI is so, so critical. Imagine the work of an organization with limited resources and with a huge mission, what it takes to steer the entirety of the federal government toward a set of goals and priorities to actually move the needle. You know, this is about not just having a body, but actually integrating the work of the body into the real work of government, and that is incredibly difficult work, and we're so fortunate to have Crystal in the lead. Also to Secretary Becerra, who spoke so personally about how the issues and challenges facing this community are very personal to him. It's also an example of how the work of WHIAANHPI is not just like an add-on to the work of Secretary Becerra and HHS, but it's a real understanding that our community's health and well-being are really integral to the work of HHS. It was certainly true through COVID, and it's certainly true through the idea that hate crimes are a public health issue. So it's not an accident that the work is actually housed within Secretary Becerra's department. And then just to say something about the amazing Ambassador Catherine Tai. I think about this all the time because I get to work with her up close and I also get to watch her. So she is our United States trade rep. Just think about that for a moment. She is the person who represents the United States on the world stage about how we're gonna build a global economy that works for the United States and works for all people, including those who have been left out in the past. So to watch her do that, to know that she's the one out there, it's not just the pride of those of us who see ourselves in her, but it's also thinking about all the people who, when she comes to the table, when she comes, right, you know, to negotiate, to have them look at her and see that she is the representative for the United States. Think about what that means and the people that it moves and the ways that it advances our community. I'm grateful to her every day for what she does, both in WHIAANHPI and in her day job. That's right. So when the president nominated me to become the labor secretary for the United States, he called me the American dream. And I just want to say, because I can't say this enough, that when he says that, he doesn't just mean me, he means all of us. He means the stories of our entire community, of the native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders who have been here since before it was the United States of America, to the immigrants in this room and the sons and daughters of immigrants and the great grandsons and granddaughters of immigrants, and all those in between. It's all of us who have helped to build this country, from our ancestors who built the railroads to those who own restaurants today, people who've worked on farms and in factories for generations, those who served in our armed forces, those who work in healthcare today and take care of our community and all communities, and who help enable the rest of us who need care at home to be able to come to work. This is all work that is being done by those of us in our community, and all of us who are represented, no matter how humble our beginnings now, when we talk about what it means to have a country in which everybody has a seat at the table and everybody has a voice. And so that American dream is what we are here to celebrate. That American dream is what we are here to imagine. You know, again, about 25 years ago, the very first Asian American cabinet member was nominated, Norm Mineta. And I think about him and his historic legacy and what he would have thought if he could look out into this room and think about what happened now 25 years later. So from humble beginnings, greatness comes, and I'm so excited both to share this day with you to talk about those beginnings and also to talk about what we can imagine in terms of what the American dream means for everybody and just how great things can become for our community. So thank you all for being here, and I look forward to sharing more with you throughout the day.
Please welcome Crystal Ka'ai, Executive Director of the White House Initiative, the first Native Hawaiian to serve in this role, and Kota Mizutani, Senior Advisor for Public Engagement on AA and NHPI communities in the White House Office of Public Engagement.
Aloha, everyone, and happy Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. On behalf of the White House Initiative on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders, or what we call WHIAANHPI, I am so pleased to welcome you all to our 25th anniversary celebration today, honoring the lasting legacies our communities have created over the last 25 years. So mahalo nui loa for joining us for this momentous occasion.
Hi everyone, my name is Kota Mizutani. On behalf of the White House Office of Public Engagement, welcome everyone to our nation's capital. The White House Office of Public Engagement works every day closely with leaders like Erica and Crystal to serve all of you and our greater AA and NHPI communities. Together, along with everyone at the White House and throughout the Biden-Harris administration, we have achieved so much over the last 3 years. And I'm lucky that the Office of Public Engagement has worked side by side with WHIAANHPI since it was reestablished.
When President Biden reestablished and reinvigorated the White House Initiative and President's Advisory Commission in May 2021, we were tasked with tackling multiple crises. We were emerging from the COVID-19 pandemic, where we saw not just an increase in health disparities and economic impacts targeting our communities, but also a horrific spike in anti-Asian hate. And we have been hard at work since then to address the needs of our diverse AA and NHPI communities all across the country. Over the past 3 years since our reestablishment, our initiative has worked with many key federal agencies to develop agency plans and advance equity, justice, and opportunity for our diverse AA and NHPI communities. And we've traveled from coast to coast and also to Hawaii and our Pacific Island territories to hear directly from leaders on the ground about the issues impacting our communities. And in fact, just last May, in collaboration with the White House, we held a historic White House forum that featured our first Asian American Vice President Kamala Harris to take a deeper dive on many of the community insights on the work that we are doing, from data disaggregation to expanding language access, mental health resources, access to education, and so much more.
Some of President Biden's other key accomplishments and progress for AA and NHPI communities include the signing of the bipartisan COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, which requires the Department of Justice to facilitate expedited review of hate crimes and to take a stand against the rise in hate crimes against AA and NHPIs that we saw during and after the COVID-19 pandemic.
And under this administration, we've also seen historic progress in terms of the inclusion of our communities, including the president's signing of a bill that will create the process to one day have a National Museum of Asian Pacific American History and Culture in our nation's capital. The president has also centered our Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander communities in ways we have never seen before. And he issued a presidential memorandum to look at expanding protections for the Pacific remote islands to conserve this unique area's significant natural and cultural resources, and to honor the traditional practices and ancestral pathways of Pacific Islander voyagers. In addition, the president recently signed into law a spending bill that will restore eligibility for federal public benefits for our COFA citizens living in the United States, which is a huge win for our communities.
Last year, President Biden also signed the Amachi National Historic Site Act to establish, a memorial honoring the 10,000 Japanese Americans who were unjustly incarcerated there during World War II. This new designation will permanently protect this historic site for future generations to come.
I feel like we're at the State of the Union, all the applause. Last summer, we all watched in horror as the tragic wildfires unfolded on Maui, a place that is very near and dear to my heart as someone who was born and raised in Hawaii. The President and First Lady made a commitment to the Native Hawaiian people, as well as the broader AA and NHPI communities living in Hawaii when they visited Maui in the wake of the devastating wildfires. And they committed to ensure that our response and recovery efforts are done in a community-centered and driven way. The Biden-Harris administration is committed to making sure Maui has every federal resource that the federal government can offer in order to heal and build back as quickly as possible. And throughout these efforts, we remain focused on rebuilding the way the people of Maui want to rebuild by respecting sacred lands, cultures, and traditions.
Finally, I'm so pleased to highlight the historic celebrations at the White House that have featured the incredible diversity of all our AA and NHPI communities. From the largest White House Diwali celebration to the first ever White House Lunar New Year celebration, to the annual White House AA and NHPI Heritage Month celebrations, not to mention the first ever Asian American Vice President, Kamala Harris. The Biden administration has and will continue to include all our AA and NHPI voices in all shapes and forms.
Mahalo again for joining us today in celebration of 25 years of history, culture, heritage, and progress. Here's to the next 25 years and beyond. Mahalo nui loa.
Please warmly welcome Deputy Administrator of the U.S. Small Business Administration, Dilawar Saeed.
Before I begin, can we all give a round of applause to Richard Louie for giving voice to our community for all these decades? Richard, here to you. These 25 years are a journey. It's a story of seeing a community and building a community and driving impact with very targeted policy, as you heard from other speakers, from across the entire federal cabinet and federal government. And I have this perspective as a former commissioner, and I have some fellow commissioners from my term days, but also today as the leader of the SBA, which is part of the federal cabinet. I still remember back in the early 2011, there's Kieran, my friend, and Daphne, us planning the inaugural economic summit in San Francisco Bay Area. And I had the opportunity to speak at the most recent economic summit in Gwinnett County, Georgia, and I couldn't help but think about all those thousands of connections that have been enabled through all this decade plus, across the administrations, by the way. But very importantly, we also got to hear from our community in summit after summit about their feedback, about their input that shaped policy. And we brought government to their doorstep. And very importantly, we helped enable a new generation of local AAPI leaders that are going to give us this opportunity to take this legacy forward. So the impact this initiative has had, it is tremendous. And of course, you're seeing this in this room, and we'll see in the many, many years to come. Now, under President Biden at SBA, we've had a historic delivery of both funding and contracting. Let me share with you 2 stats. The first 3+ years of the President's administration, $22 billion worth of SBA-backed lending has gone into AAPI and NHPI businesses. That's a near record. Yes, we could applaud. $9 billion of federal government contracting opportunities have also made its way to our communities. And by the way, let me also say, at a time when we've had judicial challenges to these programs, we have worked very hard to make sure programs like AA remain up and running to serve socially and economically disadvantaged small business owners in our communities. Now, of course, when you look at the historic investments the President has made in the country, that has helped us funnel this incredible opportunity. But one of the reasons why we've been able to reach our communities is because this initiative has built this capacity for us to be able to now reach and engage our communities around the country. But we still have a lot of work to do. I do a lot of travel, and when we go out for the SBA programs and to share, and all of my travel is in underserved regions. And one thing I have felt, whether I go to the Great Plains or the Deep South or Hawaii and other places, that our communities too are changing. They're evolving. They're growing with new Americans. We welcome more new Americans than other communities. And frankly, there are many in our communities who have yet to be seen. For them, Washington and these audiences are distant, physically, also in spirit. So it's very critical that the very spirit of this initiative, which is to see our community, to make it visible, we keep that front in mind even as we gather here. So one of the asks I have for myself and for all of you for the next 25 years is that we have to lift those who are not here. We have to pull along those who haven't been yet brought into this, in these audiences. And that's a work that remains a work in progress that requires intentionality in our outreach and engagement. And only then we will get to truly empower our communities. So thank you for being here, and look forward to working with you.
Please warmly welcome Congresswoman Judy Chu, Chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus.
Good afternoon and happy AA and NHPI Heritage Month. I'm Congressmember Judy Chu from California's 28th District and Chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, or what we call CAPAC. I'm so thrilled to join all of you with this historic forum hosted by the White House and White House Initiative on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. So I want to thank President Biden and our amazing White House Initiative on AA and NHPI co-chairs, Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra, and USTR Ambassador Catherine Tai for gathering us all together today. And can we give a big shout out for that Executive Director of WHIAANHPI and my former staffer, Crystal Kai? Well, today's summit is such an exciting opportunity for Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander community members to come together, share our stories, and to celebrate each other. As the first Chinese American woman ever elected to Congress, I can tell you that events like this hold a very, very special place in my heart. But this year is really special. This year marks the initiative's 25th anniversary and CAPAC's 30th anniversary. So it's especially meaningful to come together and discuss how our communities are affected and how we are advocating for ourselves. And in doing so, we remember so many remarkable leaders who paved the way for all of us, like Indian American farmer and county judge Dalip Singh Sound, who became the first Asian American ever elected to Congress, and Robert Underwood, who led the creation of the NHPI program, and is right here. Thank you for helping AA and NHPIs in higher education. And how about Patsy Mink, the first woman of color elected to Congress, the mother of Title IX. And by the way, as of last month, there is a quarter with her picture on it. How about that? And how about Danny Akaka, the first Native Hawaiian to serve in the US Senate, who fought to protect our language, culture, and traditions of indigenous people. And of course, Norm Mineta, the first Asian American cabinet secretary, the first chair of the President's Advisory Commission on AA and NHPIs under President Clinton, and one of KPAC's co-founders, along with Robert Underwood and Patsy Mink. We owe a great debt to him, Norm Mineta. These extraordinary trailblazers highlight how AA and NHPI history is truly American history, and that our cultures, experiences, and legacies are deeply woven into the fabric of our nation. And our community's political power has grown immensely since KPAC's inception 30 years ago. Just in the past few years, KPAC leaders have achieved many major accomplishments. To address the scourge of anti-Asian hate, we passed the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act. And do you think we need a museum, a Smithsonian museum on AA and NHPI history and contributions? Yeah, how about that? We got that bill passed as well. And we pushed back against the racial profiling of Chinese scientists and ended the China Initiative, a Trump-era Department of Justice program that was targeting Chinese researchers. And we also stopped every Republican effort to revive it. And then how about this? After 30 years of advocacy, we finally got the Office of Management and Budget to update the federal minimum data standards for race and ethnicity. So now AA and NHPI data will be disaggregated for every federal agency. These kinds of successes in Congress don't happen by our efforts alone. They are achieved with all of you here today, our partners at the White House driving a whole of government equity agenda, community advocates fighting tirelessly on the ground, and thought leaders in business, art, science, education, and more. You are all strengthening our nation in such vibrant and beautiful ways. Thank you again to the White House and the White House Initiative on AA and NHPIs, and happy AA and NHPI Heritage Month, everybody.
All right, now we're going to have a regional roll call. You ready for this? Huh? All right, but there's a catch to this, like with everything. First of all, we're going to call you by region. You have to stand if you can, and then you can make all the noise you can, but you have to say WHIAANHPI. All right? And we're going to take a picture, so there will be a record of how much energy each region has. Are you ready for that? You have 10 seconds to make as much noise as you can. James is going to take a photo of you. We will compare these later on, and we will count. We will do that, yes, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to start with the West and the Pacific Islands. 10 seconds. Yes. All right. Now, that was good practice because you're all looking at each other, not the camera. So when you do this, scream and shake, but look at James so he can take a picture. One more time. You're lucky you get 2 shots, right? The Pacific Islands. Okay. I'm not grading, but there was no WHIAANHPI in all those screams. The West, you now have an opportunity to say WHIAANHPI and do all of that for 10 seconds for James. Ready? The West! I see people going twice out here, but right, James? You think yeah, there's some people double dipping. Ready? The South! All right. Some late movers. One more time. The South! Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. All right. Calling it out over there. The Midwest! Christine Chen saying, go Bucks. I mean, all right, quiet down over there. Come on, go Blue. There's a problem with my mic, ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. And finally, the East. All right. All right, now everybody together. 3, 2, 1, go! All right, I know which one was my favorite. I don't know about you. Now that all of your blood pressure is over 200 over 120, I'd like to transition to a very special fireside chat that promises to be just as energetic, where we'll hear from some of our top Asian American leaders serving in President Biden's cabinet. Please welcome to the stage Deputy Assistant to the President and AA NHPI Senior Liaison, Erica Moritsugu, and our distinguished speakers, Acting Secretary of Labor, Julie Su.
Could you join us, please? Thank you. That concludes our panel. Can we throw a picture of my boss up there? I'm honored. My name is Erica Morton-Seco. I'm a Deputy Assistant to President Joe Biden. And it's my honor to present on his behalf greetings from President Joe Biden. And these are in his words. It's dated for today. And he says, quote, I send my warmest greetings to all those attending the White House Initiative and the President's Advisory Commission on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders 25th anniversary celebration. Events like these represent America at its best, people coming together to celebrate our time-honored traditions while looking forward to the incredible opportunities of the future. By encouraging us to reflect on the ways our country's character has been shaped by AA and NHPI communities, the White House Initiative and President's Advisory Commission on AA and NHPIs help remind us of the importance of honoring and celebrating our roots no matter where we are. Since it was established a quarter of a century ago, the White House Initiative and President's Advisory Commission on AA and NHPIs have stood as beacons of hope and possibility for these proud Americans and our entire nation. Under my administration, their work is making sure AA and NHPI people are seen and heard at the highest levels of the federal government by working to advance equity, justice, and opportunity for AA and NHPI communities. The work of those at the initiative and the commission have helped pave the way for the development of our first ever national strategy to advance equity, justice, and opportunity for AA and NHPI communities, and I'm grateful for their efforts. As we celebrate this milestone anniversary, it is my hope that you are filled with pride in all of the progress the White House Initiative and the President's Advisory Commission on AA and NHPIs have achieved. May you continue strengthening the bonds that unite us as a country for many years to come. And this is signed, Joseph R. Biden. I sat on the microphones. Hang on a second. So now I'm going to begin by reintroducing the powerhouses, incredible sheroes, and the super not-so-secret agents of change who are here with us today. We can ask Secretary Sue why she had 3 pairs of aviators at home this weekend. That's a story for another day. Tune in later. But I will depart for a moment with the dignity of their office, serving in the highest offices in the land on all of our behalf and all of America's behalf, to say from a personal and professional standpoints, I've got like star-eyed emojis here, and it's humbling to be here with you. It's my pleasure, of course, to welcome back to the stage Acting Secretary Julie Su and USTR Ambassador Catherine Tai. They are 2 of the historic 4 Asian Americans serving in the President's cabinet. Every single one of them is a woman. Vice President Harris and Director Arthi Prabhakar are otherwise engaged. They've got a good alibi. They're on TV doing the work of the nation, and so if you're wondering why they didn't show up, you can just tune in and find out. But I am very grateful to you both for being willing to share your experiences with us. Each of you have been in public service for many years and have shattered ceilings and blazed trails along the way. Hi, Zini. So I was wondering if we could start with your briefly sharing how your lived experiences impact the work that each of you do. Ambassador Tai, can we start with you?
Sure. I'm delighted. So delighted to be here on this panel with 2 of my favorite people in the world, 2 of my favorite colleagues, and also to be here with all of you. If you know my story, you know that I am a second-generation American. My parents came here. I was born here. But I am also a second-generation federal government public servant. I grew up in the Washington, D.C. suburbs. My parents were federal government scientists. And so I have grown up with this faith and confidence that government is part of the solution. And when its powers are harnessed, it can do so much good. I started my career in trade at the agency that I now lead. And I remember specifically going over to Geneva as a WTO litigator and sitting at council table. You get a placard and it says, the United States. And to begin speaking, you put your placard up, you're acknowledged. And I was there with my co-counsel, whose parents had come from South Asia, South India in particular. Her story is very similar to mine. She was born here. We went to law school, came to USTR, and we started the proceedings by saying we are here to present the case on behalf of the United States of America. And every time I tell the story, but that from that very first moment, the two of us were very conscious of the fact that it's with incredible pride that we serve our government, we serve America, the entire economy, all of the people here who make up this economy, and the incredible story of America, that in just one generation you had two daughters of Asia, now Americans, fighting for the United States of America in the international arena. And I look out and see all of you, that service and that possibility and commitment and this incredible American story that we are all a part of.
Secretary Sue, try to follow that up.
No, I do not. So I'm also delighted to be here, share the sentiment of two of my favorite people, and also looking out at all of you is just, I'm filled with joy and pride, because I never imagined that I would be sitting here. I never imagined that I would actually work for the federal government, much less be in the cabinet. So my own story begins also as the daughter of immigrants. And Secretary Becerra talked about this at the outset, about our experiences as translators. And so I grew up, like so many children of immigrants, translating for my parents and navigating the adult world and adult interactions from a young age. And some of you have heard me tell this story, but as I grew up, I realized that law is also a language, and whoever speaks it gets to decide who gets what in our society, right? Who gets to work and how much protection they get for doing it. Who gets to march, migrate, marry, vote, participate. And so I went to law school to become a translator in the language of law for people who were marginalized, discriminated against, and exploited. So I started my career at a nonprofit civil rights organization now called Asian Americans Advancing Justice in Los Angeles, where I got to work alongside many of you. And so I am literally not just from the community in my background and my family story, but also in my entire professional life before I came into government. And I feel like that experience really taught me how important it is for our community to have a seat at the table, our community to imagine that more is possible than other people told us was possible, that we should be able to define for ourselves what the needs and solutions for our community are, and that comes from listening to people in our community who've been not at the table for a very, very long time. So I bring that experience into my role now, and I came in to join President Biden in large part because he was so clear about saying that he wanted to build a country in which everybody had a seat, in which, you know, we're gonna build from the middle out and the bottom up by making sure we know who's been at the bottom for too long, and saying that we cannot build the economy or the country that we want without doing right by working people. And that was something that I felt like I couldn't not be a part of.
Sorry, I was applauding instead of moderating. Thank you, sisters. Lawyers, all in blue. I didn't realize this until today. I forgot that we were all lawyers, but it's hard to forget. None of y'all forget, I know. Sorry for that. Sorry, not sorry. But this is a good scene set for how you got here. But now that we're here, looking at the theme of today's program, which is lasting legacies, today and yesterday and tomorrow, You've led your agencies through historic legacy building in the administration for all Americans. And I was hoping that you could please share how you are leading the way to expand equity, justice, and opportunity in these roles for the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander communities in particular. Secretary Sue, can I toss back to you?
Well, so I feel like many of these themes have been covered already, and but I think that goes to something that's really core, right? Which is that there are some issues and challenges that have been very long-standing, and the opportunity to now be in a space to try to really advance it, right? I said this sort of in my opening, that we don't just want to think about the work of WHIAANHPI or the interests of our communities as standing over here while the rest of the work happens over here. It very much is about how we build real community power, inclusion, and well-being into everything that we do. So at the Department of Labor, I get to do a couple of really neat things. One is that the Bureau of Labor Statistics falls under the Department of Labor, and it is the premier agency that collects and disseminates data about the state of the economy and how working people are doing, what the unemployment rate is, who is sharing in good jobs and who isn't. And so for the first time, that data is being reported on a monthly basis, disaggregated for the AA and NHPI community. And it's important, it matters. Karthik, if you're in the room, I want to say in front of everybody here that there's been work going on within this community forever to make sure that data is collected and make sure it's available, and our next step is to make sure that it is genuinely usable for policymakers and for community-based organizations and all the rest of us. So I very much look forward to our partnership in helping to make sure that that happens. The other thing is just, we talk a lot about good jobs, and I think we all know that a good job is transformative. A good job changes lives. A good job is the way that my family, after my parents immigrated, got into the middle class. And so how we make the promise of a good job available to every single individual is really at the heart of what we do at the Department of Labor, and also what this administration cares about. And so the ability to do that in a way where we are actually measuring how AA and NHPIs are doing, that we're thinking about opportunities that maybe have been shut out, we've been shut out of for too long. How do we break down those barriers and give everyone a shot? And how do we get away from occupational segregation, which is a phenomenon in which you have a community that is pushed into certain jobs, and because that community is already devalued, those jobs then become more devalued by them doing it, right? Care jobs are a good example of that. There's so many of our community who does the hard, invaluable work of care, whether it's in homes, whether it's in congregate settings, whether it's in hospitals, and how do we make sure that those jobs are valued in the same way, commensurate with the contributions that they make, are all priorities that we're tackling at this moment.
It's exquisite. Thank you. Ambassador Tai.
So basically what Julie said, and I think that, but I do trade, right? But consider that we're basically both members of the economic policy team, right? We're basically both members of the economic opportunity team. And so a lot of the work that we're doing in the Biden administration, and you just want to highlight the degree to which you see consistency across the administration and across the different agencies and departments, where traditionally we are a very siloed organization. We're still siloed, but over the last 3+ years now, you see a lot of that trying to be broken down. And an initiative like the White House Initiative, which is across, I think we have 32 participating agencies, is incredibly powerful to drive that kind of consistency of vision. And at the U.S. Trade Representative's Office, one of the first questions that we asked one of our sister agencies, run by a lot of economists, the U.S. International Trade Commission, was, please run a study for us, investigate what impacts our trade policies have had economically on different segments of the American economy. And the first answer that came back, and nobody had ever asked this question before, which is kind of shocking for an economic policy area that you could have been doing it for decades and decades and decades and not had a feedback loop in terms of data and the impacts of the policies that you have been pursuing. So first point that came back was, we're not collecting the data, we're not asking the questions in all of the right places to give us a granular understanding of how our trade policies are impacting all of the different communities, the different sectors, the different parts of our economy. But based on the data that we do have, based on our best assumptions, based on studies that others have done, the conclusion was that, surprise, our trade policies consistently over time have not benefited different parts of America in the same way. And they have benefited some parts a lot more, and they have not benefited and even hurt some parts of America. And I think one of the immediate takeaways that we had was, well, better collect better data. So we've been working across the board, doing a lot of what WHIAANHPI is focused on doing as well. And then secondly, it was for us a confirmation that even when it comes to trade policy, maybe especially when it comes to trade policy, there are just parts of America that we are not seeing. There are fellow Americans that we are not seeing, we're not hearing, and we are not paying attention to. So that might be communities of color, that might be women, that might be non-college educated white men in the industrial Midwest, that might be parts of rural America where family farmers struggle after decades of get big or get out agricultural policies, of people having to see their kids go to other places because staying on the family farm just isn't viable anymore. So we feel very strongly about advancing a trade policy that is going to see the unseen, listen to the unlistened to, and really push on that middle out, bottom up approach where we are harnessing the power of all of our economic policies to create that durable, that abundant economic opportunity that is such an important part of President Biden's promise, but more broadly, America's promise.
And I think that's the President and Vice President's instructions and mandates to each of us who serve at no matter what level in this administration, and that's his call to action to all of our community partners and leaders too, is to be intentionally inclusive and to really see and hear and value every constituent part of this beautiful, gorgeous collective that we have assembled here and everybody that you represent. So even inclusive of course, with economic policies, but of all of the policies that we're working on. So we are celebrating, I may have mentioned this before, somebody may have mentioned this, a quarter century of the establishment of the initiative and the commission. And assembled here, and also not represented, but here in spirit with us, are a quarter century of commissioners, past and present, and especially the staff. So thank y'all. The work that you all do is it's just stunning, and it's breathtaking. And so I wanted to look a little ahead to close us out today before we get the hook. I'm looking for the timekeepers here because I don't want to make Crystal or Carolyn upset with me. What do you hope to see from the community and from the government in the next quarter century? Ambassador Tai, over to you.
So I just want to see more. I think in 25 years that there is an even bigger panel up here, that there are some of your kids, that there's an even bigger auditorium and even more beautiful convening that we have. And that probably means more problems. But it also means truly more celebration and more joy. I think that we can never forget the challenges that we have been through. And certainly if you think back to where we were 3 years ago and 4 years ago, I think in that first year of the term, I don't remember, just so much of it was virtual because we were still in the deep, deep parts of the pandemic. And I know it still feels like we have parts of a post-pandemic hangover. Today, I feel so much joy, and this celebration really warms my heart. And so I think that in thinking about that next 25 years, everybody keep dreaming, keep working, and keep being joyful, keep building.
So I'll just echo all of those things and then maybe, maybe say it this way. So I think as a community, we always hold both the how far we've come and the how much more there is to do. And at varying times, we celebrate or feel frustration about those things. And I think an anniversary is always a time to look at both of those, which is what your questions, Erica, so beautifully point to. I think that what Catherine said is right. You know, we want to be in a moment where we can both celebrate progress and not feel like it's precarious and not feel like there's so much more to do. And I would say, just thinking about that, 3 or so years ago, it was a really difficult time, specifically for our community. And the rise in anti-Asian violence, the rise in the very virulent and all too familiar racism that our community knows, and the excuses that are often used to bring that back to the surface, were really scary. I don't know for how many of you, I know for my parents, they were afraid to go out and take a walk in our community. And we live in Southern California, where there's not a dearth of AA and NHPI community members, but there was a great deal of fear. And so I think when I think about the next 25 years, I would love to live in a world where there is not that fear, where there's not that sense that something will be used as an excuse to other and to scapegoat our community. And I would say that not just in terms of anti-Asian violence, but I would say that broadly in terms of the sense of security that we want our communities to feel. So it's security across everything, security across housing and good jobs and care, and right, so a real sense of security for our community. I want to share just one quick story about that, which relates to this idea of how we see and bring people to the table. So many of you already know this, and many of you, we worked together on this many years ago, but also about 25 years ago, there was the story of the garment workers who had been trafficked from Thailand, forced to work behind barbed wire and under armed guard in the United States of America. And they, against all odds, fought back against their imprisonment, held companies that they were sewing for to account, and really transformed the garment industry with their work. I was able to, from this position, induct them into the Department of Labor's Hall of Honor a few months ago so that they could take their rightful place in American labor history. So that's part of a legacy, right? Seeing them there, their story will always be a part of it. But one story I always remember is the story of one of those workers who, when she was 9 years old, living in rural Thailand, she loved to go to school. And one day she put on her secondhand school uniform and waited by the door. And that day her parents told her she would no longer be able to go to school because they needed her to take care of her younger siblings while her parents went out in the fields to work. They just couldn't afford for her to go to school anymore. And so she cried and refused to take off her uniform and really tried to hold firm. And then for many, many days afterwards, she would put on her uniform in the morning, hoping that her parents would change their minds. They never did, they couldn't, and so a few years later, she found herself on a plane to the United States to be held against her will, working, sewing garments 18 hours a day. I think about her, and when she told me this story, I said to her, this was now many years ago for me, but I told her that I felt like I got the education that she wanted, and I would always do everything I could to make sure that I did right by that privilege. So to all of us with the privilege of the education that somebody else wanted, I feel like we have tremendous work still to do. But I'd love to be in a world 25 years from now where every little girl like that has the opportunity that she wants, whether here or in another country.
Kapkunka. You brought the Thai garment workers to Washington, D.C., where we all had a chance to meet them. And talk about a living legacy. That's kind of you, the two of you. When you see the arc of these stories, of these lives that you've impacted, individual by individual and community by community, it's just breathtaking. And it's been the honor of a lifetime to share this stage with you and to guide our wonderful stakeholders through this journey and this conversation. I'm very grateful for your service, and thank you so much. Happy 25th anniversary. Happy Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and happy cabinet members, I hope. Thank you.
Seated, the program will continue. A warm welcome to the stage, the Surgeon General of the United States, Dr. Vivek Murthy.
Hey everyone, how you doing? It is so nice to be here with all of you, and it's so great to see so many friends and familiar faces. We're here to do so much today. It's to celebrate this incredible 25th anniversary of the White House Initiative, but also really to celebrate all of you, the communities we come from, and the incredible contributions that we've made to this country. I also want to tell you, just on a personal note, that back in 2013, when I was nominated to serve in this role as Surgeon General by President Obama, and to be the first AAPI member to serve in this role, I was so incredibly touched by the support from all of you, from this community. It meant the world to me. And I've always kept that in my mind and in my heart, that responsibility that I know many of us feel in government, to not only embrace the opportunity we've been given, but to open doors for others like us in our communities who are also deserving of incredible opportunities to serve. So I just wanted to say a thank you to all of you for that support. And I also wanted to say, you know, being able to serve during a crisis like the COVID crisis we've had is a tremendous honor. And I know many of us feel that way. Every time I walk through the White House, through our department, through the halls of Congress, and see other AAPI members of our administration, I feel a real sense of pride at how much representation we have. And that has really grown over the years, like you heard from Neera earlier today. Even in the time that I've been in government, I've seen a significant increase in our representation. And it's been really profound to see. But one thing I'll tell you on a lighter note, in terms of public service, something that wasn't in the memo that I was given when I began my tenure as Surgeon General, is that you find that you end up disclosing a lot about your life. Sometimes things you thought you'd remain private become public. Like that one time I innocuously posted a picture of me at an ice cream shop somewhere in the United States, and it became clear that I prefer to eat ice cream cones without the ice cream. And that led to a bipartisan national uproar, calls for my resignation, and a rare moment of national unity in polarized times. So, you know, these things like this happen. And a year after that, I remember disclosing on a podcast with Eric Nam, who many of you know, of great K-pop fame. But I disclosed that I, in fact, have always had this dream of being in a boy band. And you know, sometimes you forget other people are listening to your conversations. Maybe the speakers and the headphones should have been a clue that others would. But the point is that we decided during that call that if we ever formed a boy band together, that we would call it Dosajang, after my two favorite foods, dosa and gochujang sauce. So there you go. So, you know, unexpected moments can sometimes lead to your dreams coming true in government. But yesterday was Mother's Day. How many people celebrated Mother's Day? Well, look, we're only less than 24 hours away from Mother's Day, so I think it's okay to celebrate it. Shout out to all the mothers who are here, all the mothers-to-be, all the people who celebrated their mothers, whether they're here or not. But like many of you, I was thinking about my mother and about my parents and their journey yesterday. You know, many of our parents took harrowing journeys to get here to the United States. My parents were no different. But my earliest memories of what America was came from them. And they taught me, not through history books, but through their stories, that America was a place full of compassionate, courageous optimists. Now, they knew America wasn't like that all the time, but they wanted their kids to grow up in a country that aspired to create opportunity for everyone, where we wouldn't be judged on the basis of our skin color, or where our ancestors came from, or the sound of our accent, or the fact that we had a funny sounding name, but where we'd be in fact given opportunities based on our willingness to work hard, based on our common humanity. That notion of America as a place of courageous, compassionate optimists is what fueled me. And in that dream, my parents believed that in a compassionate America, we all take care of each other. They believe that in a courageous America, that we don't turn aside from hardship, but we face it head on. They believe that in an optimistic America, we are not blind to what is broken about our world, but we appreciate what is beautiful about our world and use that as fuel to help us take on the challenges ahead. And when I think about my parents' stories and the stories that brought so many of our immigrant families here, whether it was a generation ago or many generations ago, I realize that they are those compassionate, courageous optimists, and that part of our job as an AAPI community is to now continue in their footsteps and make that dream of an America where opportunity is available to everyone, to make that true for each and every person who comes to these shores, whether they came a year ago, a generation ago, or many generations ago. I know that doing that is not easy, and that you can't do that alone, and it requires a true community. And that's why my hope is when we leave here today, that we will remember that it is essential that we support and show up for each other, that we lift each other up, that we recognize that even though these can feel like lonely and isolated times, that we are not alone, that we share common struggles, but also common hopes. And it is when we come together, not just in moments like this, but in small moments, when we check on one another, when we support one another, those are the moments that help give us strength and that make the dream that our parents came here for, and grandparents and ancestors, possible. I finally just want to say that as we look to the future, my hope is that we will look at our community and at our heritage with a sense of pride, knowing that we have come from extraordinary backgrounds. You know, the immigrants who came before us, they braved unimaginable hardship to make the life possible that we all have. They hoped and dreamed one day that these lives may be possible. My grandfather, who was a poor farmer in a small village in South India, could never have dreamed that one day his grandson would be asked by the president to look out for the health of an entire nation. That is the power and the promise of America. So let us never forget where we came from. Let us never forget to be proud of our heritage. And let us leave here more committed to seeing that dream through, of an America where opportunity is available to all, where everyone is welcome, and where everyone feels like they truly belong, regardless of their background. I'd be remiss if I didn't close by saying that one of the most important things we need in this moment to heal is music. Music is an incredible source of healing. It uplifts our spirit. It fills our soul. It brings us together in moments like this. And with that, I want to give great thanks to the artists from Mark Tycho Connection who will be drumming for us today and who, in a decision that they may soon come to regret, have allowed me to actually join them. So thank you all.
What just happened? I was standing backstage and I was looking at the picture and I was going, what is the Surgeon General doing? He then let me know that he'll be singing an opera at the Lincoln Center tomorrow. There are still some available tickets if you'd like. I hear he's a good woodworker as well. Ladies and gentlemen, that was fantastic. Thank you to Mark H. Tycho Connection. And you saw that they were also all-star, right? Many of those who work with our community day in and day out. Just really fantastic. Next, I'd like to welcome Kevin Thurm, CEO of the Clinton Foundation and former Health and Human Services Deputy Secretary when the White House Initiative was first established. A warm welcome.
Well, I want to thank Richard for that introduction, and I learned in the Clinton administration never to follow a drum corps, particularly if the Surgeon General's with it. I don't know what, I should have negotiated a better deal here. I want to express my appreciation and say thank you to everyone who helped create today's event, including the volunteers who greeted us. I want a big shout out for the volunteers. Really. I very much appreciate the opportunity to attend today's celebration of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders Heritage Month and commemoration of the 25th anniversary of the White House Initiative. I would like to thank President Biden, Vice President Harris, and members of the Biden administration, including Crystal and all members of the White House Initiative, for the strong continued support of the AA and NHPI initiative. Quite a number of those here today are longtime friends and former colleagues from whom and with whom I learned so much over many years, and I deeply appreciate your ongoing service. I would also like to thank my longtime friend, Shamina Singh. For representing the Clinton administration during the panel discussion later this afternoon, for being a champion of the AA and NHPI initiative from the start. Shamina and the other members of the original team and colleagues who are here today, and you should stand up. All the members, the original people who should stand up. I'm sure that team helped launch the initiative. They were exceptional colleagues and created a strong foundation for what it has grown into today. I also want to thank and acknowledge the members of President Clinton's Advisory Commission on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, as well as the many colleagues at HHS throughout the federal government who, with the staff led by Shamina, made a substantial impact with their efforts and the interim report issued in January of 2001. As I used to say, we have to put things out that can hold the federal government accountable to what it could and should be doing to help communities that have not been included along the way. So thank you for your extraordinary work, members of the commission, too. Because of President Clinton's leadership and unwavering focus on putting people first, as well as the engaged leadership and strong support from Secretary Shalala and HRSA Administrator Earl Fox, the White House Initiative launched 25 years ago after being ideated and created and nurtured at HHS. Executive Order 13125 was part of President Clinton's broader vision to create One America, which required a focus on and an intentional inclusion of Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. It is why we created the White House Initiative, to make a positive difference in the lives of people in these communities. During the Clinton administration, the initiative focused on, among other areas, improving health outcomes, reducing disparities, promoting inclusion, and increasing economic opportunities. More broadly, during the Clinton administration, poverty among Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders declined by more than 10%. More Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders were included in the 2000 census, as approximately 2.3% were not counted in the 1990 census, and there was significant progress in understanding and addressing disparities in racial and ethnic health. What started in the Clinton administration has been carried forward by many of those here today and others. You'll hear more about it later in the program. We have made much progress, but there is still much to do. Today is about celebrating that progress and also committing ourselves to accelerating our efforts. As you know, and we emphasize at the Clinton Foundation, to create sustaining solutions to our challenges requires not only government, but the private sector and the not-for-profit community to come together in partnership and collaboration. I would like to turn it over now to someone who has long demonstrated his commitment to the advancement of the AA and NHPI communities and who issued Executive Order 13125, President Bill Clinton.
I'm honored to join all of you gathered in Washington this afternoon to celebrate 25 years since the creation of the White House Initiative and the President's Advisory Commission on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. When I signed the executive order in 1999 establishing both the White House Initiative and the President's Advisory Commission, there had never been an order of its kind aimed at improving the lives of these important groups of Americans. In fact, the only previous executive order in our nation's history regarding Asian Americans was the shameful one that sent 120,000 Japanese Americans to internment camps during World War II. I knew we had to do better, and that we'd never finish the work of building one America until our government fully served every American and truly reflected our growing diversity. We've come a long way in the last 25 years, but we know much work still remains. Still, there's not enough representation in elected office or corporate boardrooms, and there's far too much discrimination and hatred. That's why I'm very grateful to President Biden for reinstating and reinvigorating the White House Initiative on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. His administration is promoting belonging and inclusion, breaking down barriers to federal programs, and diversifying the federal workforce at every level. America's diversity is our greatest strength, and the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander communities are all essential parts of that diversity. As you come together today to celebrate your heritage and look ahead to the next 25 years of progress, I send my best wishes for a memorable and meaningful event, and special thanks to those of you who were around 25 years ago when we started.
Please welcome to the stage our next performer, American Idol winner, Iam Tongi, performing his newest original song, Running.
Still nervous. wherever I go.
To sit down with some of our very best AA and NHPI celebrities and advocates, please welcome CEO and co-founder of Gold House, Bing Chen.
Good afternoon, good afternoon. Happy 25th birthday, everyone. All right. Happy APOM, happy Monday. Thank you so much to Caroline, Crystal, Kota, Phil, Rebecca, and so many others who put on this most incredible event, especially one with a gold ceiling. As we often say, there are no ceilings in our world unless they are gold. And with that, let's get to the more important people. First and foremost, please welcome a true legend. Lucy Liu blasted on the television scene. Yes. Lucy blasted on television scene through Ally McBeal, followed by blockbuster films like Charlie's Angels, Kill Bill, and Shazam, where she played, spoiler, the bad person. She is a tentpole for so many of us, not just within the Asian community, within the women's community and others, but for all of artistry. She is the first Asian American woman to actually lead a Hollywood action film. She's the first to host SNL, and she is now one of only 2 Asian women with a Hollywood Star of Fame on the Walk of Fame. Give it up. What we love about Lucy, though, is she is not only an award-winning actress, but a producer, a director, and an artist. She was appointed as a UNICEF ambassador in 2004 and awarded with the Danny Kaye Humanitarian Award in 2008 for her consistent and sincere dedication to the most vulnerable children in the world. Please give it up for Lucy Liu. Next is Chef Christine Ha. This is very personal for me. Chef Ha was the first ever blind contestant and season 3 winner of my favorite show, MasterChef. My favorite moment about Chef Ha was in season 3. How many of you watched season 3? Okay, there you know. So remember when they had the sushi and sashimi challenge? They had to all cut sushi and sashimi perfectly and present it to the terrifying Gordon Ramsay. And Chef Ha not only did it, Chef Ha won. And so we're doing this a little out of order. It was just such a proud moment, I think so emblematic of how many of us have to strive to be 3 times as good to get just as much, and therefore we win. Her book, of course, Recipes from My Home Kitchen, Asian and American Comfort Food, was a New York Times bestseller, because of course it was. She's also done several TEDx talks, so watch her online, and spoken about disability advocacy at the UN, as well as serving on the culinary arts and as a culinary arts envoy overseas for the American Embassy in several countries, Serbia, Bosnia, Croatia, and Vietnam. In 2014, she received the esteemed Helen Keller Personal Achievement Award from the American Foundation for the Blind, a recognition formerly bestowed upon Ray Charles, Patty Duke, and someone named Stevie Wonder. Next, I want to introduce our friend Kelly Hu. Give it up for Kelly. Kelly is, of course, an actress, a model, and the first AA NHPI leader to become Miss Teen USA, which of course was 3 years ago. She starred in numerous films and kicked numerous asses in The Scorpion King, X2 as Lady Deathstrike. We all remember this. Probably actually the best X-Men movie ever. Teenage Mutant, yes it is. Also primarily because she's in it. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Disney Channel hit Phineas and Ferb, Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure, the Mortal Kombat franchise, as well as starring in Netflix's Finding Ohana, and currently on Starz' BMF as Detective Veronica Jin. She also in 2004 integrally produced an award-winning PSA with MTV to get our community to vote. Give it up for Kelly Hu. Now, the reason we started with these 3 ladies is because too often these forums, and actually not this forum always gets it right, but other forums forget that 51% of the population is what? Women. And I want to remind everyone that none of us would be in this room, literally, if it were not for women. So happy Mother's Day to all mothers yesterday. And those who function like mothers as well. Next, we want to introduce former Commissioner Malik Pancholi, who President Obama appointed to serve on his commission for AA and NHPIs. Welcome, Malik. He is, of course, an award-winning actor, author, and activist, primarily known as my favorite, the impossibly sunny Jonathan, on, I would say, the funniest comedy of all time, 30 Rock. If you've been living under a rock for, 7 seasons and hate awards, then I don't know why you're here. But make sure you check him out. His debut novel, of course, like a good multi-hyphenate, The Best at It, was awarded the 2020 Stonewall Honor. It tells the story, and then his sophomore novel, Nikhil Out Loud, tells the story of an 8th grade theater kid rising up against homophobia in their community. It won the 2023 Lambda Literary Award for middle grade literature as well, because of course it did. And finally, I honestly thought this was your day job, so I don't know how you do everything else. A good time machine, maybe. But Malik is also the co-founder of the AA and NHPI anti-bullying nonprofit, The Incredible Act to Change, which fosters a world where all young people can celebrate their identities. And because this is an Asia-Pacific event, we have to end with the youngest, because the youngest are the future, but also the least important in the room. And so please welcome Hudson Yang. Hudson, actually I should say Hudson Yang, is not only the tallest person on stage, the youngest but the tallest, that's how we like it. As we all know, he is the incredible lead of the incredibly pioneering ABC hit Fresh Off the Boat. Hudson has won so many awards, and we are all very proud as your elders. But they include the Scene Stealer and Choice Comedy TV, but not that proud. Okay. Keep working. All right. But they include the Scene Stealer and Choice Comedy TV Actor Teen Choice Awards. He also joined this particular celebration in 2015 as a 12-year-old. Cannot believe how young you are. I just aged all of us in the room. You're welcome, I'm sorry. And now at 6 feet tall is studying at Harvard University, wherever that is, as part of the class of 2025. Welcome, Hudson. All right.
It's 6'2".
Wow. First of all, in Asian math, you're 6 feet. Stay humble, young man. All right. We're going to do a round robin. We have a lot of ground to cover because we have so many legends and pioneers across the space. I want to begin with very one-sentence, quick answers. What is our community's superpower? Madam Liu, let's begin with you. You'll give it up for Lucy Liu, a legend in these halls.
I would say that our superpower is our quiet resilience and perseverance, which is becoming louder and louder. We are crescendoing into the future, and into this present we are breaking things that are not just ceilings, but the walls.
I love not just breaking up, but breaking side to side. Beautiful. Molly.
I would say our superpower is this. It's our community. I think that, first of all, a huge shout out to WHIAANHPI. Also, serving on the President's Advisory Commission, I think, was a seminal moment for me to understand the full diaspora of what our community can be when we come together. And so that is a huge superpower that we have, I think, community and coming together.
Very good.
I have nothing to add to that. Seriously, you guys said exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, it's our ability to come together. I mean, and this is, I think, more of a recent thing. I know that some of us have been doing this for over 30 years.
The young at heart.
Organizations like this did not exist. And so thank you guys for coming out and supporting one another and supporting us. People who are, in the film industry, in the public eye, and watching our shows and just being there for us. So thank you.
Hudson.
I was also going to say resilience, but I guess one of our superpowers is our diversity. Even within the community of Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, Pacific Islanders, we may be more diverse than America itself.
Very good. Chef Ha.
Funny thing is, I really was going to also say resilience, but I knew I was going last, so I'm like, someone else might take my answer. So I will have to say our superpower would be our adaptability and our perseverance. I think we've been able to overcome a lot of things, come together, and still be a community.
Very good. There's something so poetic that resilience was so resilient on these answers. Let's go to Lucy. You built an entire career on so many firsts. Given backwards looking, you've done so many firsts, but also forward looking, you're going to continue having so many firsts as a director, producer, and so forth. How do you think about creativity in the next 3 decades? Where is it going?
I think with the way that if we really recognize what is happening with technology and with the speed with which news spreads across the globe, it's something that is a responsibility, and it's something that we have to really understand is changing not just our culture, but our emotional culture. And so I think for somebody in the entertainment industry, it is really important to recognize your responsibility as a person outside of the industry and to keep those things separate. And I really think that there are going to be so many more filmmakers, creatives, because of the technology that we have in our hands. And that is something that is exciting to me, but it also holds a responsibility that we have to recognize in keeping people's privacy important, and also understanding the emotional and social repercussions for younger audiences and younger people, because there is a connection to social media and gaming that is creating a very different, very isolated world. I think it is, you know, the iPhone, the iPad, you get into your home pod, and then you get into the car pod to get to your work pod. I think we have to really make sure that we don't get so insular, and that is the danger within the excitement of the technology, and to sort of understand the balance of that. I mean, I think we can all really see how important that is for ourselves and to connect. I think it used to be on set that people would talk to each other between when people were setting up the lights and getting things ready. And now when I look around, everyone's just on their phone, isolated, communicating with the people that they want to communicate with, but not with one another, like right in front of each other. And so that is something that I really see, especially since I have a young son. He's 8 years old, and I want to make sure that he really can connect with other people, because the disconnect happens quickly. When I was traveling for UNICEF, going to different countries, even though these children had no running water or access to any of those, even electricity, they wanted to see, at that time, you know, in the early noughts, a phone. And they immediately, it wasn't even the iPhone, if you can believe it, it was just a digital camera. They immediately were able to figure it out, you know, and having no even access to schools. It's so, you know, tangible and recognizable to them what you have to do. And so knowing that and knowing what we have, you know, available to ourselves, it's something that I think is important to recognize that balance.
It's such a salient point, Lucy, because as you know, there's so many defining technology platforms that were actually co-founded by our community, whether it's NVIDIA and Jensen Huang, whether it's Satya who helms Microsoft, or YouTube, Twitch, Snap, etc. So all the more we have a personal responsibility to this. In the interest of time, I'm going to move to Malik. First of all, everyone congratulate Malik on being banned in several schools. No. This is how we know we're in DC. Where we come from in New York and LA, being banned is a sign of success. Because it means you said something that is progressing something, in your case, something really productive. And so, Malik, your books are being banned, whether it's because of their A and NHPI nature or the LGBTQ sort of components of them. I want to ask you, especially because you're such a joyful, thoughtful person, how do you fight back when something for the AA and NHPI or LGBTQ community is suppressed?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to also double down on something that Lucy said. Like I go to schools a lot when I'm not being banned at them, and and kids are often like, hey, where do you get ideas for stories? And I'm like, well, the biggest way to get an idea for a story is to engage in the world around you. Like lift your head up out of that phone and interact with people, interact with the world, take in everything around you, because the stories that happen in real life are actually far more interesting than most of the stories that we create for film and television and books. And in fact, when you try to put some of those stories into books or TV or movies, people are like, that would never happen in the real world. And they're like, no, it did actually, and that's why it exists in a movie, because real life is really interesting. But to get back to the bigger question, I think it's important for a little bit of context to understand that you know, as little as I think just over a decade ago, you could find more inanimate objects as lead characters in books for young people than you could find kids of color as lead characters in books for young people. That's shifting a lot. There are a lot of creators now who are writing stories for kids so that they can have the representation that so many of us in this room did not have when we were young. We didn't have Hudson to grow up with. You know, we saw him as an adult, but luckily kids could see themselves in Hudson Yang on television. The pushback to that, I think, is what we're seeing with bannings, is this idea that for some reason those stories feel threatening to other people. I don't know why they're so threatened by that. It doesn't make sense to me. Why shouldn't our stories exist in the world? So how do we then fight back? And I think that's your big question. So I just want to point out a couple of great Asian American writers who are doing such great work. Ellen O, who co-founded an organization called We Need Diverse Books, along with Danielle Clayton. If you go to their website, there are so many resources on what to do. Christina Sornvat, who is an Asian American writer who drafted a letter that was introduced into Congress talking about the importance of representation. Being engaged with your school boards, understanding who you are electing to those positions at school boards, because sometimes they don't reflect the community and the students at the schools. And so they're trying to pass legislation to keep stories out of schools when in fact the kids deserve to see themselves in those books. So make sure that you're engaged. That's a huge, important way to fight back, but also like get banned books for young readers. Get readers access to those stories. Make sure that you are also providing young people access to stories in which they can see themselves. And I just want to add one last thing. And I'm taking up a lot of time here, but we're not talking about an idea here. You know, as the co-founder of a nonprofit that deals with anti-bullying work, Act to Change, we know that 80% of Asian American young people are experiencing bullying. And a large part of that is because they are not seen as the leads of their own stories by other people. We know that LGBTQ youth attempt suicide 4 times more often than their counterparts. That's because they need to see that they can exist in the world. And I think books, stories, television, film, media, those things are important to allowing them to see themselves as whole human beings.
There's so much richness there. We heard about technology responsibility. We heard about lack of connective tissue. We heard about fighting back and being banned against systems. We heard about loneliness. Kelly, Hudson, and Chef Ha, let's combine the first 2 questions. What do you all see as the future of creativity, whether it's fighting for representation or fighting back for certain policies that are more inclusive?
I think we are, hopefully, because this needs to happen. We need to find more of the NHPI on television and in film and representation. I know that there are organizations out there. I think Goldhouse is working with ICANN, International, I had it. But it's an organization that's helping people of Native Hawaiian and other Polynesians to really hone their skills in the arts, whether it be acting or directing or writing. We need more of these kind of programs. We need funding for these kind of programs to exist because there is a want out there. There are artists out there in the community who want to be seen, but they are not getting, there's no confidence because they don't have the classes and the training and the experience that it takes to even get seen by agents and casting people. Even for shows that are being cast in Hawaii, a lot of times NHPI people are overlooked. And you know, so I think that if we continue to fund these kind of programs, we'll be able to see more of that.
Absolutely. Clap. Hudson.
Hard to follow. No, I'm good. Mine answer is kind of a call out to all the creators who are out there right now, Asian American creators, Pacific Islander, Native Hawaiians. I think if we were to continue creating and continue normalizing seeing Asian American faces on different content platforms, be it television, media, TikTok, the things that are popular, it's the best way to fight back against the stereotypes that we face and the difficulties we face breaking into these communities. So all I really want to say is continue doing what you're doing. Fight back against the walls that are holding you back, you know? And that is it. Creators up here as well.
Very good. Chef Ha. Oh, Chef Ha.
I think my piece of advice would be for most of us because I don't come from a background of entertainment necessarily like many of my co-panelists, but for me, I think growing up a woman or a daughter, a female, Asian, Vietnamese, I was always taught to be quiet and always just take things as they're handed to me and accept it. But I think my piece of advice to fight back is to lift your voice and take a seat at the table yourself. I think it is a thing to be modest, but at the same time, who else is going to brag about us or who else is going to shine the light on ourselves if we don't do it ourselves? So I think the way to fight back is to lift your voice and show off like all of the accomplishments that you have done yourself or the people that are on your team or your background or other people of our own heritage have done. So really just be proud of that and don't be shy about it, be loud about it.
I love that. There's that saying of don't beg for a seat at someone else's table, but just build your own table. I also especially love that Christine represents this of saying other people's names when they're not in the room so that they're invited in that way too. I want to change gears. In the name of inclusivity, whether it's for the Pacifica community or just for our broader community, Hudson, we obligatorily have to ask you this as the resident Gen Zer. What do Gen Zers care about in 3 minutes? Teach all of us.
So that's why I'm here. Okay,
Yes.
cool.
You are the token today. How does it feel?
Shoot, all right. What do Gen Zers care about?
Yes, particularly that's narrow when it comes to creativity.
That's hard. I think right now, what people care about is things that they can relate to. Especially coming out of COVID and coming out of all these like exclusive situations, people want to feel seen and feel connected. Especially Gen Z. Right now, they've been stuck inside doing school online. So I think I don't know if I can say I don't feel like a Gen Z, but I don't know if that's pretentious.
That's something a Gen Z would say.
Yeah, you're right, it is. My bad. But as the, token young person, I think what we are looking for is for stories that are told that make us feel like we are part of a many, not of one. And also, the truth is short-form content is kind of leading the world right now. We love 10 seconds clips that we can watch in a second, so that's my take.
Very good. Are we satisfied with the Gen Z's answer? All right.
I can give you more, but 10 seconds is all I got, so.
It's fine. Tomorrow is all Gen Alpha, so enjoy your 15 minutes of fame. I'm kidding. Chef Ha, we were talking recently to some South Korean leaders, and they have by far been the most successful cultural exporter from APAC worldwide in the past 2 decades, Korean cinema, K-pop, and so forth. And they had mentioned to us that there are really 2 industries that typically will export from historically marginalized groups, and they are food and they are entertainment. It usually starts with those 2. Food, for better or worse, is something that combines and convenes all of us. We know that when you search on Google for any sensibilities of the Asian diaspora, food is typically what comes up first. The first 2 favorite cuisines on Yelp are, of course, from our community as well. My question to you is, how do you not only think about the future of food, but I think also importantly, how is food essential at resetting the narrative for the Asian and Pacifica communities?
For me, the reason I got into food, I've never been to culinary school. I was self-taught, and the reason I even taught myself how to cook was because when I was in college, I missed my mom's home cooking, and she actually passed away when I was young and never taught me how to cook. So I wanted to recreate a lot of the flavors and the dishes that I grew up eating at her table. My parents were both Vietnamese refugees, so for me, the reason I love food is because as I started cooking and got better and better, I realized that that's my way of sharing who I am as a Vietnamese American, what my background is, what I grew up eating with other people. And so I feel like food is very a relatable subject. Like, we all have to eat in this world. We all need nourishment. You can not necessarily speak the same language or come from the same country or share the same beliefs or backgrounds, but you can sit down at a table and share in a meal, and at the end of that, understand the other people at that table a little bit more. So for me, I think what's important about food is how it brings people together. So in this day and age, I feel like my food, my particular cuisine, for example, my restaurant in Houston, the Blind Goat, is a modern Vietnamese eatery. So my background is, yes, I'm Vietnamese, but I was born in Los Angeles. I was raised in Texas. So what does that all mean? I'm taking a lot of the American foods and dishes and taking a lot of the Vietnamese more traditional dishes and styles of cooking and ingredients, but also adding like the Gulf Coast seafood or the Cajun cuisine from Texas and Louisiana or Texas barbecue, and infusing that throughout all the dishes on my menu. So for me, I think food is really a way to show how we are not just the other, but now we're here in America, and this is what Asian American food can mean. It's not necessarily all the traditional foods, which is fantastic. You remember the traditions, but you celebrate it in a modern way to show that we are now part of this culture.
I love that. I want to sit with this. Food and table setting is one of the best ways we can convene, and everyone has touched upon the lack of connectivity, especially, not to pick on you again, Hudson, but your generation. I mean, you had to, go to school virtually. You saw your parents become unemployed during the greatest economic recession. There's a lot of challenges in convening. I would love for everyone to speak very specifically about how we fix this. And I don't want hallmark platitudes of, we're better together. We all know that. Every presidential election, that's a version of that is their stupid tagline. I want specific examples, and Chef Ha, you're relieved because you have dedicated your career to this. You have food, so she has food. What else do we need to do specifically to improve connection, which can improve loneliness, and so forth? Who wants to begin? The bravest will start first, as she does.
It's a really difficult question and quandary. I think that, some of the things that we heard earlier was to remember, to reframe, and I think it's hard. My parents are from China. I was born in America, and I have a lot of their culture still within me, and I also have American culture. So there's this combination and this kind of dichotomy that's going on. So I bring that up because you can't break and change that tradition. I know that because, my parents are very, clear about what they think is right and appropriate, and inappropriate. And that's their belief. I think when you come into the modern times for yourself, you have to respect that, understand what you can change and what you can infiltrate. And so it's a gradual shift. I think when the wall came down, everyone thought, oh, democracy, it takes time to build. And we have to recognize that, understand patience, understand community building, and it starts in a smaller community, and then you can connect through that. I don't think you can just say, declare across the board, this is what we're gonna do, and everyone's gonna do it. There's gonna be a lot of discussion, there's gonna be a lot of difficulty. I mean, we think about what's happening in the world right now, and even within an apartment building complex, people don't get along. So the reality is different from the proposition or the thought of it. And so if you start in your community, within your school system, within even your own building, don't you think that there is something that has to come together to build something greater? If you don't have a strong, brick, or you don't start with a foundation that is strong, then it's gonna crumble. If it crumbles in one place, it's gonna crumble everywhere else. If there's a hole in the boat on that person's side, it doesn't matter, it's not on my side. Guess what? You're all going down. So that's what's happening, so we have to see, how can we all collectively solve this? And everyone's gonna have a different idea, and everyone's gonna think their idea is better. So how do we come to, let's see what this is, let's look at it, take the microcosm of it, zoom out, look at the macro. I mean, you have to really look at it and take time. You have to map it out. There's no quick solution. It's like health. People are doing all these things to make themselves, look a certain way faster. There's no such thing as a shortcut. And if you do that, you will have complication later on. And I don't think, I mean, that question is very big, and it can be impactful, but the reality of it has to be something that is built brick by brick, and it has to be not cheaply made.
There's so much sobering wisdom in that. My blood pressure also just dropped 20 points hearing that.
I want to say one thing. I think we can take this all as individuals. Don't give yourself a discount. Just don't. You know, and you look at that in society, let's not give ourselves a discount. Let us pay for what we want. You get what you pay for. And if you want something for yourself, you want health, you have to give it to yourself. Don't give yourself a discount.
I love that. I think too often our community does discount ourselves, like we're 6 feet tall when we're 6'2". You are 6'2", young man. You tell me. No, but I first of all, I feel really guilty. I actually was realizing I actually don't know my neighbors' names. And I love that you said, and this is the truth, we have to focus on small. Now, the beauty of the AA and NHPI community is, while we may seem small, we're 62% of the world, so we're actually very big. So a good place to start. Who else thinks they have the panacea to global connectivity?
I'll hop in with it. Were you gonna go ahead, Hudson? You can go. Okay, great. I'll hop in with something that I don't know if it's the panacea, but I'm gonna take a stab at this. You know, I think of myself as a storyteller, whether it's through acting, through writing, or even the nonprofit work with Act to Change. Like, the thing that we tell kids is that your stories matter. And I think what I heard Christine say, not to like put words into your mouth, but part of being proud of your work is having the willingness to wear your story on your sleeve and say, this is who I am. And every time you move into a space, you're telling a piece of that story. So there's a concept in, particularly in middle grade literature, that was put out by, I actually don't know exactly where it started, but there's a great essay by this woman named Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop. It's very short. I would encourage you all to read it, but it talks about how stories can be mirrors and windows and sliding glass doors. And when you see yourself in a story, that mirror can be incredibly powerful, because for some people, it might be the first time that they see that their story has validity. It's also a window for someone else, when they get to hear about your story, to understand your experience. And at best, it's a sliding glass door where we're all moving in and out of each other's stories. And I think that's how we build empathy. And I think empathy is that connective tissue that brings us all together.
Absolutely. Kelly, Hudson?
Mine's going to be kind of a platitude. My thought is, what we can do here is to open our minds, open our doors, and don't pick up our phones. Because these days, there's some power on the internet where we can talk with anybody around the world. But the difference between a conversation on the phone and a conversation in person is there's leagues of difference. I was talking with Kelly earlier, and it was incredible. You know, so if you're able to have a conversation with your neighbor, with someone near you, with someone walking down the street, and you can talk about how you're similar and you're different, I think that is the first step, the bricks you need to build the foundation to actually start having this connectivity within our culture, within our nation, within our societies, and that's...
Church. I think it's very practical, not a platitude at all. Yep.
Right. And to add to that, I think that, you know, we have become such a divisive society with, you know, liberals and conservatives. I think that we really need to be open to hearing everyone and not closing ourselves off because the other person thinks differently. You know, I think that we're not even willing to have conversations oftentimes with people who don't have our same political views. And I think that is one of the worst things that is dividing us. So if we really want to connect with one another, we really need to open ourselves up to hearing what other people have to say, and their stories as well.
It's so salient. They often say that the only thing worse than silence is silencing others. So especially, I think, timely now. Last question. We are, of course, all here commemorating the 25 years since the creation of the White House Initiative for AA and NHPIs. Happy birthday again. We can all rent a car together. For those of you who don't drive, a car is like a bike, but faster. And the theme of course, this incredible forum and convening is lasting legacies. My question to each of you is, what would you say is the lasting legacy that you would like to leave behind when you inevitably go, will be my euphemism. Spoiler alert, we're all human, we all die. Y'all knew this, right? We all knew this, right? Okay.
Isn't there a point, though, where we can live long enough and then last forever?
Our
You just have to make it that far, right?
Our Silicon Valley friends tell me it's 15 years, and then Neuralink will actually become sort of self-aware. So we got 15 years. So if you last the next 15 years, you're good. But in all seriousness, who would like to begin? Why don't we start with the youngest first this time? Since theoretically, I hope you will live the longest.
I have a long time until I have to leave any legacy, I think. But my hope, actually, what I'm going to say is I've been a part of so many legacies already. If it weren't for the amazing writers and actors and co-stars and people who have helped me found the beginning of my career, and I don't think a lot of Asian American media would be so possible. Without Fresh to the Boat, without All American Girl, Crazy Rich Asians couldn't have happened, which was a jump start for the community. I really just want to take this time to thank my predecessors, Lucy Liu, my incredible directors and writers who have made Fresh to the Boat the show that it was, and look forward to the next generation of people who will hopefully become all of our legacies as they create more content that takes Asian America to the next level.
I love that. I also love that our legacies are not only multi-generational, but past, present, and now. I mean, we look to so many of our sort of elders or superiors who are all having second, third acts. And it's just incredible to see people sort of stretch themselves in all ways. Who else? Next.
I can go next. I believe that I think one of the most important legacies that any of us can leave behind, and the one that I hope to impart, is the idea of hope. And I think it's because in this day and age, a lot of us may not feel like there's a lot to look forward to. Like Kelly said, our society tends to be very divisive right now. But I think that we cannot give up the optimism that there is still the innate good in humankind. And I would hope that my story or my legacy is one of hope, of someone whose parents came here escaping a war-torn country, had me in America. They had no money, but raised me to be a person with integrity. I lost my vision in my 20s, so I had to deal with the vision loss. But I took the risk of going on to audition for MasterChef, and the rest of that was history. So I feel like to have hope is to also know that the greatest rewards come from the greatest risk, and the answer will always be no unless you try or ask that question. So I hope for that, like everyone has the hope that you can achieve what you would like to achieve if you have the willingness to work hard and be in the right place at the right time and just open yourself up to the universe and say yes.
Coming from Hawaii, in the middle of the Pacific, I hope to lead with aloha in everything that I do. And so I hope that will be my legacy, is to just spread the aloha and the message of unity and humanity and kindness. I would like for more than whatever I've accomplished acting-wise. I hope that will be my legacy.
Mullet?
I don't know that I have a great answer for this, but I guess when I think about legacy, I think a little bit about the small ripple effect. And like walking into this room today and running into former commissioners and just being able to hug people and think about the trenches that we all went through for the things that we were advocating for, makes me want to, I just want to shout out to like what that ripple effect can be. So Kieran Ahuja, who is the executive director of the White House Initiative on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders while I was serving on the commission, she changed the trajectory of, I can barely see you, I'm about to like fall out of the chair, like the trajectory of my life. And it started with one meeting of me saying that the former commission, so here's Legacy, had started to work on anti-bullying work, and I wanted to continue that work. And Kieran set up the first AAPI anti-bullying task force at the White House, and out of that, Act to Change was born. Act to Change is now a national nonprofit, and at our gala last year, a young woman who had been through our youth ambassador program who was adopted, Asian American adopted by a white family, her dad, they live in rural Maine, her dad came up to us and said the first time she ever got to be with people who looked like her was through your youth ambassador program, and the next day when she went to school, she carried herself just a little bit differently. That's legacy to me. It's like it started with the previous commission to our commission to an amazing executive director to a nonprofit. My co-founder Rebecca Lee is out here, and other board members like Jamie Locke and Anthony Reyes. I think that is legacy to me.
I just want to say that I'm so honored to be on this panel and here in DC and with all of you. I have learned a lot as I've, gone through over 30 years of learning about myself in the industry through the work that I've done, through the people that I've met. And I think legacy is such a wonderful word because we always think about it behind us and not ahead of us. And I think for people that, like my parents, worked so hard, I never got to see them. I never got to see myself because of that. And I think I only started to look at myself when I started to become other people as an actress. And it's kind of a weird way to look at it. It's a little triangulated. But I would say legacy is about receiving from others, receiving from yourself. And we're so used to giving and moving on and going to the next thing that we don't stop to receive. And receiving is what is going to grow you. And that is the seed that you will continue to leave on the ground or in the air or wherever you go. And I think we forget to receive oftentimes because even, I'm a mother of a young child and you're constantly, going and feeding and cleaning and, and you just, even when you sit down, you're not receiving, you're just exhausted. But to really sit and receive the quiet or the thought or the friendship or the eye contact, we forget, and that really can bring you back to yourself. And if you are healthy and well in yourself, you will always be able to continue to give and to thrive, and they will thrive from it as well.
It's so wise. Lucy Liu, Malik Pancholi, Kelly Hu, Hudson Young, and Chef Christine Ha. Give it up for them. Thank you all.
How amazing was that? I was standing backstage and I was feverishly taking notes about quotes. By the way, it is now the selfie segment of today's program. So we're all going to stand up, look to the person at your left, your right, behind you, snap a selfie. I'm serious right now. And then we have to let the world know about Heritage Month. Just snap it right now, really quickly. Come on. You gotta let the world know about what we're doing here today. And don't forget the hashtags, lasting legacies, WHIAANHPI, and of course, AA, NHPI, HM. You got your selfie? Yes, share it with everybody. We got to let everybody know about what we're doing here. And share a quote from our celebrity panel who is so awesome. All right. Okay, we got one more. Exciting, very exciting, a magnificent, mystical, and mesmerizing performance on stage. Please welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I knew I shouldn't have said selfie. Look at all of you. Look at all of you. You're all like 12 again. Come on. If y'all could get back to your chairs. That's right. Hugs, kisses. whatever else you're, All right, thank you for getting back to your seats. I want to give due respect to an amazing performer who's going to be coming to the stage right now. Please welcome magician David Kwong.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Hi, my name is David Kwong. I am a magician. I'm also a New York Times crossword puzzle constructor, which basically means I've taken the world's nerdiest hobbies and combined them into one career. Yeah. I think all magic tricks are puzzles, right? They challenge your brain to see if you can work out the solution. And I want to introduce some of the puzzle pieces I'm going to play with here today. I brought with me my handy Scrabble mug. Does anyone know what the K stands for by chance? The K? It stands for potassium. Potassium, yeah. Folks, this is the kind of show you signed up for, okay? It also stands for kiwi, the furriest of the fruits. I'm going to hand this out for inspection and safekeeping. I need an able-bodied person. How about in the, yeah, do you want to inspect it? Okay, you can take it back to your seat, yeah. But protect it, guard it with your life, but make sure there are no holograms or wires or anything. It looks good. Wonderful. Okay, the other thing I'll need, this is a bit strange. I need to borrow a $1 bill from someone. Does anyone have a $1 bill that I could borrow? I know no one pays, it's like mostly a cashless society now, but does anyone have a single? In fact, oh, someone's coming up. It'd be good if I could borrow a number of bills, actually. Give the magician your money. Thank you very much. No, does anyone else have a? Anyone? Oh, yeah. I just want to look at it. Yeah, bring it up. We got to move quick here. Oh, you said, okay, good. Hello, great. Yes, 20s, 100s is fine, whatever. Okay, oh, that's a 10. I just need one really quick. Hi. Yeah, let's see. Oh, hi. Hi, hello. Oh, wait, what is your name? Yes, hi. What is your name? Lexi. Hi, Lexi. I'm going to have you sign your bill right here on the stage. Use it as a table. Write your name right over George Washington. Now, by the way, defacing currency is a federal offense, but no one works for the government here, so you're fine. Put it to the back, flip it over, and draw your favorite dinosaur for me. Draw your favorite dinosaur. I need to return these other two bills. Where do they come from? I'm set on dollars. Where did they come from? I've lost track. I don't want to steal your money. You're drawing a dinosaur there, Lexi? Anything from the late Cretaceous period is fine. Thank you. Can you hand these back? And there's one to hand back to somebody. Or you can keep it if you're that kind of person. That's fine. Thank you. Put some little arms on that. That's perfect. Great. Thank you, Lexi. I'm going to, take a photo. Okay. Yeah, all right. Thank you very much, Lexi. Look at this. We have Lexi's name on the front. I'm going to show everybody your artwork. And on the back side, we have, can we get a close shot of this? A stegosaurus of some kind. Does that look good? All right, now Lexi, you've given me, you can sit. You've given me $1. Is there any amount that you would like me to turn this into? Any amount at all? What bill? 100. Okay. Well, this is actually the first trick I ever learned when I was a little kid. So here we go. I'm going to fold the bill a few times. That's once, twice, a third time just like this. And if I've done this correctly, your 1 has miraculously turned into 100 Mexican pesos. Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. Can somebody hand this back to Lexi? Hand this back to Lexi. I'm not sure what your ROI is on that, but thank you for your kind participation. Now, I'd like to put a photo up on the screen. This is my first photo. Hopefully it comes up. This will be of my father, who immigrated from Hong Kong in 1965. He is a brilliant biochemist, a wonderful father, and the smartest person I've ever met. And this is integral to how I fell in love with magic. So if you'll indulge me a quick story, when I was a little kid, when I was 7 years old, we went to a pumpkin patch at Halloween, and there a magician was performing in front of the barn. And he did a trick I'll never forget. He took a little red sponge ball and he placed it in my hand. He took a second one, he made it disappear, and when I opened my hand, I had 2. My mind was blown. But then, an indelible moment. He did the trick again, and this time for my father. And he put that little red sponge ball in my father's hand. He made a second one disappear, and when my father opened his hand, he had 2 balls. And I turned to my father, this omniscient scientist, to the smartest man I knew, and I said, how did that work? And he flashed me a sheepish grin, and he said, I have no idea. And that's when I knew I wanted to be a magician. Let me show you what I've learned over the past few decades. You've been guarding the kiwi. Are you able-bodied enough to spring up here? Are you able to maybe turn around, I'll take that. Yeah, oh goodness, okay, yeah, and put your butt up there. Oh, all right, nicely done, good, good, good. Do you happen to have a knife on you by chance? Is it Kamal? Hi, Kamal. Hi, I have a knife here for you to inspect. It's just a plastic knife. Come center stage here so everybody can see. That way you've inspected all the goods here. You've checked out that plastic knife and the kiwi. And Kamal, I'm just going to slice into the kiwi. Let's get a nice close shot of this with the camera if we can. And I'm going to have you do the easy part. You're just going to break off the top of that fruit. And inside, what do you find buried inside that fruit? What is that?
Holy cow.
Holy cow, he says. Show everybody that it's not just a holy cow, but also a stegosaurus and Lexi's name on the other side. Show everybody what you got there. Turn it around. Look at that. Now I'm going to give you a napkin. Don't go anywhere. Can we pass this back to Lexi, please? Thank you. This is for you. A good magician always brings a napkin. Thank you so much. Let's give Kamal a big round of applause. Thank you. Okay. Now I want to put another photo up on the screen. This is of me and my father many, many years ago. This is a wonderful tradition, a Chinese tradition for a newborn. The parent takes the child to a high place, to a peak, to celebrate birth and hope and possibility and potential. And the translation of this Chinese phrase for this occasion is, with every step, you go higher. It's lovely, isn't it? And I actually think it applies throughout our entire lives. And I also think it encapsulates us, our collective experience as Asian Americans. We strive, we progress, we rise, and sometimes it might seem just little by little, step by step, but we are always moving upward. And let's put the next photo up, because you can see that just last year, I brought my little baby up to a high place to celebrate as well. And there's my father, and we're all very, very proud. This is my daughter, Cozy Kwong. And let's show one more photo. You can see about a year later that I'm in big trouble at home. Yeah, thank you so much. Now, I grew up in an academic family. My mother's a professor as well. And they were wonderful parents, and they've been very supportive. They worked hard to provide a great life for me. I ended up graduating from Harvard, and they have always supported my studies and my academic pursuits. But let me tell you, the last thing that an Asian parent wants to hear when their son is graduating from Harvard. Dad, Mom, I want to be a magician. No, they've been really, really supportive. And it turns out the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, because my magic show is actually all brainy and nerdy and cerebral, just like them. It's called The Enigmatist. It's magic and puzzles. I did it at the Kennedy Center last year. Maybe some of you caught it. Thank you. It'll be in Chicago at the Chicago Shakespeare Theater in a couple of weeks for the summer. Come on through the Windy City. Speaking of puzzles and magic, I have some very exciting news for you. Can we bring out the paper? I'm gonna show you on a pad of paper the most exciting new development to take place. That's right, my friends. They've just added a lot of new words to the Scrabble dictionary. Yeah, I know. Thank you so much. The last 6 months have been off the hook, am I right? Yeah. Let me show you, thank you so much, some of these new words that you can play in Scrabble. Check this out. You are now allowed to play in Scrabble. Jedi is good in Scrabble now, a very smart person, yeah? You can also play the word selfie is now good in Scrabble, as is folks. There's a great use of the X. A new spicy word in Scrabble, sriracha is good in Scrabble. Yeah, we all love that. Excellent. You know the boat, the kayak? The kayak? You can now spell kayak like this. Q-A-J-A-Q. I know, it's crazy, right? Like, why would you waste your blank on a second Q? Why would you do that? Okay, that was maybe too inside Scrabble. I'm going to teach all of you how you can win in Scrabble every single time you play. And it starts with this. Does anybody know what it's called in Scrabble when you play a 7-letter word? You use your entire rack of tiles. We call it a bingo. I don't know why we call it a bingo, but if you can use your entire rack of tiles, it's called a bingo. And how many points bonus do you get for a bingo? You get a 50-point bonus if you can use all of your tiles. Now, in Words with Friends, if you bingo, you get a 35-point bonus, which means that it's not worth it, and Words with Friends is a shitty game. But in Scrabble, you get a 50-point bonus every time you bingo. And I'm going to teach all of you how you can bingo again and again and again, and you can destroy your grandmother in Scrabble. Okay, so it starts with this. The best letters you can get in Scrabble are not the Z or the Q or the J or the X. They're not worth 10 points or 8 points. They're worth 1 point. These are the best 6 letters you can get in Scrabble. T-I-S-A-N-E, tisane. It's a type of herbal tea. Because you can use these 6 letters and add almost any 7th letter to them, rearrange them, and spell a 7-letter word, and you're on your way to fame and glory. So, let me show you how this works. It does not work with the Q or the Y, but the other 24 letters do work with this. So can I have a letter from you, please? Any letter from the alphabet? R. So R is actually the best letter that you can get in combination with these. Yeah, look at this. You can spell stainer and get your 50-point bonus. Or retains. Or antsier is great. Also, retinas is a good way to get your 50-point bonus. Let's try this. Can I have a letter from you, please? So K, you can get your 50-point bonus with intakes. You see, add the K to that. And let's see, one more letter from you, please. M, you can spell, it's similar. Let's do inmates, and let's do J. Ooh, they just added this to the dictionary. Look at this. You can spell tagines, which are Moroccan stew pots. Yes, oh my gosh. Okay, but I'm going to try one last thing for all of you. Check this out. 3 more bingos, and to make it a little more difficult, let's go for 8-letter bingos, and here they are. I'm going to do shuffles and chit chat. Yes. Then I'm going to do slapjack, and I'm going to put in the values for these letters. They never change. The S is always 1, right? The H is 4, and here I go. 1, 4, 4, 1, 1, and 1. 3, 4, 1, 1, 3, 4, 1, and 1. And 1, 1, 1, 3, 8, 1, 3, and 5. I play a lot of Scrabble. Okay. Now, I'm going to take these 3 8-letter words, which I've basically now converted to 3 8-digit numbers, right? And I'm going to add them vertically to get a new 8-digit number. So the S plus the T plus the K, the 1 plus 1 plus 5 is a 7. The 1 plus 1 plus 3 is a 5. Now, before I began this little experiment, there were some puzzle pieces in the room, right? You had a kiwi kummel, right? And you cut it open. What did you find inside? A dollar bill came from Lexi, right? Where's Lexi? Is it drying off over there? Yeah? No, it's still wet. Okay, but you turn it over to the George Washington side, and you can see in the lower left-hand corner, there's an 8-digit serial number there, right, Lexi? Yes. Does it end in a 5-7? That's a very good sign. Okay. Lexi, what is to the left of the 5 in the hundreds column? I'm going to tell you, it's a 6. Is it a 6, Lexi? It is. 1 plus 4 plus 1 is a 6. But what do we have? Just yell it out. What do we have next? A 5, because here's where it gets interesting, folks. 4 plus 3 plus 8 is 15. Carry the 1, mind you, to get a 9. Yes, Lexi? What do we have to the left of the 9? We have a 3. 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. What do we have after that, Lexi? It's another 9. 4 plus 1 is 9. And last but not least, what do we have, Lexi? We have a 5, 5, 9, 3, 9, 5, 6, 5, 7. Does that match your dollar bill? You're damn right it matches your dollar bill. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. My name's David Kwong. With every step, we go higher. Thank you very much.
On June 7th, 1999, just after 6 p.m., history unfolded in the Oval Office. with the stroke of a pen, President Bill Clinton signed an executive order establishing a White House initiative and Presidential Advisory Commission dedicated to improving the lives of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. Over the course of 25 years and 5 presidential administrations, the size and scope of these entities have evolved. But the full story of why and how they came to be has rarely been told. The late 20th century was a time of significant economic, political, and cultural change. And in the nation's capital, a movement was underway to transform our understanding of the health of America's diverse communities. In August 1985, the U.S. government published the Heckler Report, the first comprehensive review of the health of racial and ethnic minorities. The landmark study laid the groundwork for decades of federal efforts to tackle health disparities. But the report contained a major flaw, using limited data to incorrectly assert that Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders were healthier than any other racial group in the U.S. The conclusion frustrated health advocates who rallied to demand better data and research and formed national organizations to promote greater research and awareness of the unique health issues facing our communities. Born out of this activism was a first-of-its-kind initiative housed in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Known as the HHS AAPI initiative, the department launched a sweeping strategy to address the long-neglected health disparities impacting Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. The HHS AAPI initiative was an early success, and in December 1997, advocates and members of Congress pushed for a dramatic expansion of this initiative to operate government-wide. With a flurry of meetings and letter-writing campaigns, their efforts would pay off, with President Clinton signing Executive Order 13125, the first ever executive order to improve the quality of life of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. In 1999, this new White House initiative took shape, working across the entirety of the federal government to address challenges like language access, cultural competency, and civil rights.
As commissioners, all of us understand that we have an opportunity to shape an Asian American Pacific Islander agenda of historic proportions.
The White House Initiative and President's Advisory Commission have served as a convener and connector for our communities to the federal government. And while their mandates have shifted under each president, their central purpose has remained the same. Since the beginning, a government-wide working group of federal officials has developed and implemented agency plans to address community needs. And in 2013, a regional network of hundreds of federal officials who live and work in local communities throughout the country was formed to serve as an outreach arm for the initiative. Individual presidents have shaped the initiative's charge to address immediate national priorities and gather community input on an array of issues. Under the Clinton administration, initiative staff and commissioners crisscrossed the country hosting town halls with community members to inform a comprehensive report to the president, which would become the blueprint for the next 25 years. Subsequent initiatives built on the foundation of the Clinton years, increasing access to healthcare and education, bringing immigration to the forefront, and fostering entrepreneurship and civic engagement. In 2004, President George W. Bush moved the initiative to the U.S. Department of Commerce, shifting its focus to improving economic opportunity and federal support for AAPI businesses.
As Asian Pacific Americans realize the opportunities of our nation, they're also answering the call to give back to our communities.
In 2009, President Barack Obama reauthorized the initiative and moved it to the U.S. Department of Education. The initiative's scope was restored to a broader mandate to include cross-cutting priorities such as data collection, federal workforce development, and public-private partnerships.
I want to make sure that we are hearing from you so that government does its part on your behalf, just as you're doing your part on America's behalf. That's why we're always welcoming your input, from meetings with Sikh Americans to Native Hawaiians. The goal is to make sure that our government is successfully working to address disparities in healthcare and education and economic opportunity that exists within various AAPI communities.
And under President Donald Trump, the initiative was relaunched in the Commerce Department in 2019 with a mission to increase access to economic resources and opportunities. In 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic plunged the world into crisis. Lives and families were shattered. Small businesses and workers found themselves struggling to survive. The virus gave rise to a wave of xenophobic rhetoric and violence against Asian Americans, not seen in decades. And on March 16, 2021, a string of horrific shootings at Asian-owned businesses in Georgia took the lives of 8 people, including 6 women of Asian descent, and shocked the conscience of our nation. President Biden was swift to respond, taking bold action on day one to prioritize an equity agenda unlike anything ever seen before. And in May 2021, he signed an executive order to return the White House Initiative and President's Advisory Commission to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. The president also provided both entities with their broadest mandate in history, expanding their scope to explicitly acknowledge Native Hawaiians and tackle the twin public crises of the pandemic and the rise in anti-Asian hate.
The Biden administration says it is reinstating the White House Initiative on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. It's also expanding the original mandate to include coordination across federal agencies to respond to anti-Asian violence.
Vicious hate crimes against Asian Americans who've been attacked, harassed, blamed, and scapegoated. At this very moment, so many of them are fellow Americans. They're on the front lines of this pandemic trying to save lives. And still, they're forced to live in fear for their lives just walking down streets in America.
In recent years, our communities have experienced historic visibility. President Biden's cabinet is the most diverse in history, with a record 4 Asian American women, including our nation's first Asian American Vice President, Kamala Harris. Under the Biden-Harris administration, the White House Initiative is actively advancing equity, justice, and opportunity for AA and NHPI communities. Hosting events nationwide in partnership with local communities, we are honoring our roots as an institution created with, by, and for the people we serve. And through landmark legislation and celebrations, we're fostering belonging, promoting narrative change, and ensuring our stories are told. From historical struggles to modern triumphs, our journey as Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders has been marked by both adversity and resilience. We've come a long way from being invisible and excluded to now being an integral part of society that can't be overlooked. But this progress is by no means a coincidence. Since 1999, the White House Initiative and President's Advisory Commission have been a key part of that journey, ensuring that our voices are heard at the highest levels of government. Thousands of Americans have shaped and sustained our legacy, and millions more have been inspired and impacted by our work. As we look towards the future, let's continue to build bridges, open doors, and break down barriers. And let's renew the promise we made 25 years ago to improve the lives of Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders for generations to come.
I belong here, no matter where I've been. I belong, I'm home. I belong, no matter where I go. I belong, I'm home. I belong.
What a great documentary short. I mean, 25 years, you look through every one of those pieces of video, you listen to what Lisa Ling, who so beautifully narrated that, and you see what has been accomplished in the last quarter century. Quarter century. Big round of applause again for that documentary short. Who are all these people come up? What are you doing? Are we doing a panel or something? Ladies and gentlemen, as you can probably tell, we have an extraordinary, stupendous panel to celebrate today. Former White House Initiative executive directors sharing their reflections on the last 25 years. This is just so much history right here in front of us. Please welcome Chris Lu, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations for Management and Reform and former co-chair of the White House Initiative under the Obama-Biden administration. Great to see you, Ambassador.
Richard, thank you, and thank you all for being here. This is really the best kind of reunion to catch up with so many old friends and colleagues. I have the distinct pleasure of moderating this panel with the five of the former executive directors of the White House Initiative. But before we do that, I just want to ask around, if you have served as a commissioner, if you have served as a staff member, stand up. If a detailee, a member of the federal interagency process, if you were an intern, just stand up and wave to the crowd. Thank you all for your service, and I think this shows you the depth of the caliber of people that have served and will continue to serve from here on out. So as I said, I am pleased to moderate this historic panel that brings together executive directors from the last 5 administrations of both political parties, which just demonstrates how bipartisan this initiative is. The only challenge we're going to have today is to try to get all this in about a half hour. But representing 25 years of the initiative, let me go down this row. So many of these are old friends and colleagues. Shamina Singh, who was literally there at the inception of their President Clinton. John Duong, who served during the Bush administration. Kiran Ahuja, the longest serving executive director. Tina Way Smith, who served from 2019 to 21. And then finally, a woman who needs no introduction today, Crystal Kai, our current executive director. So as I said, it's been a long day, it's been a great day, but we have a short amount of time. So I'm going to ask the panelists to keep their answers quick so that we can probably try to get a second round in. So let me start with Shamina. You were literally there at the inception, and I'm sure you could do a long discourse on what that was like, but would love just a couple of minutes about how you set up this. You are literally the godmother, grandmother of this whole thing.
Okay, don't age me, Ambassador. But here's the thing. It's so amazing to see all of this, and I can't thank the initiative staff for pulling this together. There were a lot of people that you saw in the documentary and that are also here today. So Tessie Guillermo, Martha Cho, Mike Patel, the full staff, the OG. I'll tell you, there was, I'm just going to be really brief because there were 3 things that we set up and under one big goal. So what our only goal was to do the work that Tessie and Ignatius had asked us to do, which was make sure that the White House Initiative served all AAPIs across the country. The way we did it was with one goal in mind, to ensure that we had another initiative come after us. So we literally had, I think, 18 months to create the office and set it up such that there was so much success and so much momentum that nobody could not renew it when it came after. So the way we did that was really, really simple and really straightforward. We had the best team in Lisa Hasagawa, Charmaine Manansala, and Ruby Lum and Parag Mehta. And we focused on the federal agencies, the commission, which was our liaison to the communities and the nonprofits, And then we also brought in private sector actors and all the policy leads. And together, we worked across 32 federal agencies. The last thing I'm going to say is, this was the first initiative that worked across every single federal agency. There are a lot of initiatives who've come after who deal with all the agencies, but we were the first ones. And so it was that three-legged stool with fantastic staff led by amazing commissioners.
So let me go down the line. So John, you had to pick this up, change administrations. Would love to hear about that, as well as the focus that the Bush administration had on addressing health equities, health disparities, and how that factored into your work.
Ambassador, thank you for moderating this panel. I'm just honored and awed to be on this panel with all esteemed colleagues here. And before I answer your question, if I may acknowledge a number of individuals who actually, if it weren't for them, I wouldn't have been in that job and that role some 20-something years ago. And for me, before I do that, Crystal, I mean, there's no accolades for you. This is legacy setting, talking about a theme. What you're doing here is record in archive legacy for our community. Another 50 years from now, that when you look, another 25 years from now, when we look back, we'll be looking back upon this record here today that you've set. So you, your team, Carolyn, Erica, Andrew, and others, kudos to you for what you've done. And also inviting me, for that. And also, I wanted to acknowledge, you mentioned your staff, Shamina. I've inherited a great group of staff, Charmaine, Lisa, Parag, Angie. They, during the transition, helped me tremendously, because you were starting out, you had 18 months. You didn't assemble a commission yet in that any 18 months to produce the interim report. We were figuring out our ways as well on the way. And with the individuals that still left, gave me the institutional knowledge of where to pick up, right? So for them, I thank them. My own staff as well, when they came in to office, Eric Wang is here, Betty Lam is here. I appreciate them for being here. And there's 5 members of our commission who were going to be out here today, but only one of them actually made it. Commissioner Balki Vu from Atlanta, Georgia. He's here and is stuck around. I want to acknowledge him. Beyond that, I mentioned about the struggles trying to finding our ways. There were a couple people in administration that I want to acknowledge at the time that really helped us. Secretary Elaine Chao and a gentleman by the name of Ed Moy. He was in presidential personnel at the time. And Ed really drive internally, try to renew the executive order for us. Externally, there's a gentleman named Dr. John Su, beloved mentor of mine, and another gentleman named Clayton Fong, most of you may know. Clayton was also instrumental because he worked with NCAPA and other community organizations here in DC. He knew how it worked, and actually was critical in making sure it's renewed and stayed at HHS to focus on the health disparity piece. So I want to acknowledge those individuals. And from here represent Bush administration, but there were 2 other executive directors behind me, Eddie Badrina and Jimmy Lee, who are not here today. Want to make sure they're counted. So what we did when we started was looking at the totality of, well, here's an opportunity. What's important for our community and how to address them. We want to do everything from economic development to healthcare to education and whatnot. But looking at the scope of things, and mind you, there's a thing called 9/11 happened. And so we had to kind of like focus and then look at the most vulnerable part of our population, looking what issues face them the most, and it became apparent that health and health disparities were a key. And picking up on what Shamina did, the interim report, still had it.
That's why we called it interim, was so you'd pick it up.
You did a marvelous job, right? So what we did after that was we produced the whole report. Unfortunately, I left. I'm not sure this is published or not. But Crystal, I'd love to hand this to you, scan it and publish it and pass it down. But obviously, that has all the issues. There were 5 steps that we did. Jeff out there and others, throughout the community. There were 5 steps that we recognized, knowing that there's socioeconomic diversity in our communities, there's language barriers, access to barriers and whatnot. There are 5 steps, and I want to bore you all. And then there are 8 recommendations involved. A couple of which I was happy to hear from Secretary Becerra to others who've talked about collecting data, and then disaggregation of data. And what a recommendation, I'm not sure it has been picked up, but hopefully, Crystal, you can look at this, is the serving institutions, in terms of health serving institutions, and then the serving institutions that I think recognized recently. I think Lisa was pushing me for that when we were in office, so I want to have recognized her there. The lasting legacy was if that report there can be picked upon by community advocacy groups, by the community, by policymakers, by planners, and we hope that is the first step and a foundation step that others can build upon. Looking back, I was happy, that some of the issues were continued, and some of the issues have been addressed, although not fully addressed. There's more to do, and hopefully we'll get there with the rest of, the successive commissions and directors.
Great, thank you, John. All right, I'm going to stipulate everyone's staff and commissioners are great. So in the interest of time, we're going to stop this trend. You do not need to, and you should not actually thank everybody from here on out. All right, Kieran, you have the distinction of having served the longest. Would love to hear about some of what you consider to be your legacies.
Well, thank you, and it's great to be here. And I was just thinking through when that amazing video that we saw just now, and I really just truly astounding to see kind of how that's all captured, and then also seeing myself like progressively age throughout the various parts of the video. I would say, what I think is our like lasting legacy, and I really do appreciate this, Chris, is that we had the 8 years, not knowing that we had the 8 years, was knowing now that we now had, again, an expanded initiative that was going to work with all these different agencies. In a big way, it was about taking the initiative to scale of the kind of impact that we could have. And that was both in the federal employee network, regional network that we created, that included so many individuals who, all across the federal government. This was about deploying our individuals, folks who were so committed to this work, to be out there in the community and to ensure the work that needs to happen in their agencies could happen, and we had folks who were going to carry that forward. It was a level of community engagement that the number of summits, the work that our commissioners engaged in. I would like to say our big summit in 2015, which was over at, where was it, at GW University, hopefully set the stage here for let's have fun, government can be fun, that we can have music, we can have entertainment, but we can talk about some really, really important issues. And I think for us, it was also how, deploying people from our staff, details, interns, commissioners. I mean, Chris, we were trying to think about just reimagining the level of scale and engagement that we could have. And I think that was something that I see as really hopefully setting the stage for future initiatives around the kind of breadth of work that we wanted to have. And then finally, I'll just say, a part of why this feels so much like coming home is the amazing friendships and connections that we have. And when I see people like you, Chris, I think about you and I would fight with you a lot. You remember that? I would fight, pretty much. Chris was a person at the White House, and pretty much he heard me yelling about one thing or another that I wanted to do for the initiative. So I think, again, this is about the kind of the war stories we can tell, about the friendships that I think I will take also, that just continues to, you see the love that's in the room. So I think that's the amazing part as well.
Thank you, Karen. So Tina, another switch in administrations, also a switch from education to commerce. Would love to hear about some of the priorities you had of commerce, but there's also kind of this continuing theme. We've talked about Secretary Chow already. Secretary Chow continues on, and what that kind of continuity of leadership means.
Thank you, Chris. And is this on? Okay. And I apologize. I do have to recognize folks in order to sit up here, because this is not my legacy. It is not mine. It's the co-chairs, Secretary Ross and absolutely Secretary Chow, who was so instrumental in making sure that the initiative, the President Advisory Commission, continued its work into the next administration. And we were, in hindsight, our priorities were economic and workforce development. Of course, with Secretary Chow being former Secretary of Labor, also over being at Commerce. But in hindsight, it was really crucial that that's where we were during the 14 months. And again, I'm sitting next to giants, historical giants here who have done so much for the community, so I'm just absolutely humbled to be here. But historically speaking, in hindsight, that was where we needed to be in serving the AAPI community. When we sworn in our 14 commissioners, that was during Lunar New Year, the year of the rat. And, who knew that day was also going to be the first COVID emergency meeting? And so one by one, my speakers were pulled off stage, and here we were trying to celebrate the first time a Vice President Pence, got to swear in our commissioners, and we were so excited to get to work. We were so excited to start. And through COVID, through anti-AAPI hate, we wanted to make sure it was imperative that we served and continue to serve the American people, to serve AA and NHPIs across the country, the small businesses that were hurting, the frontline workers, so many that were AAPIs. And so with both, and I know Crystal has shared about this and others too, to stand up the initiative and the commission, I had 14 months, but to stand it all up, to make it function, and to actually do the work to make sure that we were still doing the outreach, that we were still advocating within the federal agencies. We had the 2020 census, and just to be able to do all of that work simultaneously, it was definitely a big charge. But I'm proud that we continue to carry that torch. We wanted to make sure, from one administration to the next, the AAPI voice was still being heard. That we were still, I know we heard this earlier, but disaggregating the data, making sure that we were measuring the AAPI experience. We wanted to ensure that we did that, and I'm proud that the commission and the initiative continue to carry that torch. Trying to get that report out within that time period was also what we needed to make sure that was done as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tina. So we've been talking about carrying the torch, pass the torch. John literally just passed the torch down to Crystal with that report. It's now on you. Everything, all our hopes and dreams are with you, Crystal. As you reflect back, and I know you've spent a lot of time talking to your predecessors, learning from them, are there issues that really start from much earlier that you're continuing on? And then what are the new basket of issues you're adding to it?
Thank you, Ambassador, and thank you to our esteemed panelists. I'm just so grateful for the work that you have done to lay the groundwork for where we are today. I also want to recognize, I'm sorry, Chris, I have to do shout outs, not just the leadership of our co-chairs who you heard from earlier, Ambassador Tai and Secretary Javier Becerra, but also my team. This work does not happen alone. So if you are a current WHIAANHPI staffer, if you can just wave, I just really am so grateful to our entire team for making this event possible. We had to go to the archives, figure out how to digitize some of these really old documents from 25 years ago. So, but everything you see here today, again, it was truly an effort of love to be able to document this history and to be able to showcase where we are today. I think, so many of the challenges our communities face were outlined in that initial report. So thank you, Shamina, and to your commissioners. Data disaggregation, language access, the need for greater inclusion and belonging, visibility for our communities, all of those things are, sadly, there's still issues we are fighting for, but one of the things I am very proud about is the tremendous progress we've made over the past 25 years. Due to committed community leaders, many of you in this room, due to our commissioners who have continued to stay engaged, and our current batch of commissioners, I see many of them here today. This fight is not something that starts with just one person. We know that we are very much continuing the legacy of those who have come before us, including the late Secretary Norman Mineta, who truly was a trailblazer, someone who I don't think, many institutions that exist currently would not exist without his leadership. And I think back about that as we are celebrating this historic milestone, but also as we're looking towards the future. As I mentioned, so many of these issues are the same, and 25 years from now, I'm hoping we're not still talking about the same issues. How are we going to solve data disaggregation? How are we improving language access? I think the game changer now is the technology that exists, and so it's how are we going to leverage and utilize that through the federal government to really innovate how we are addressing concerns for our communities that have sadly existed for decades, especially as our country continues to become more diverse. We know that's going to be so critical to make sure AA and NHPI communities are not forgotten.
Thank you for the panelists for keeping their answers short. I'm going to do one more quick sort of lightning round. We have about 10 minutes left, and ask each of you the same question. Let me start back with Shamina. If we're back here 25 years from now, you can answer this one of two ways. What additional, Crystal was saying so many of the issues are the same. What haven't we addressed? What should we address going forward?
I think it's a great question, but instead of answering it, I'm going to use my time to, because why not? I'm the first. So I'm going to use my time to remember two women who aren't with us today, but who deserve enormous credit. That's Maria Haley and Laura Eford. And they were our fairy godmothers in the administration. And in honor of Laura Eford, when she passed away, she gave me the necklace she wore when the executive order was signed, and so today I'm handing it over to Crystal. These are the necklace and the earrings that Laura wore, and so she gave them to me right before she passed away. So God bless you. And Laura was our big hero from Hawaii as well, so it only makes good sense.
All right, Shamina broke the rules, but she stole the show, so I can't get that mad. John, do you want to take a crack at this? What other issues should we be addressing? I mean, unless you want to hand Crystal something else, actually. We could all hand her gifts, actually.
Well, I'm not sure I'm going to answer your question directly here, but there are a lot of issues left in terms of, to pursue. I mean, when our term were similar in terms of the same era. We're 20 plus years ago, over 2 decades ago, right? At the time, our population was about 12.5 million people. Today, we're 24 million. Although a lot of issues we worked on here have improved and whatnot, but our population is going to continue to grow. And from that growth, there'll be new issues to address. And so I think for us is to get enough of the capacity, the infrastructure, the advocacies, both public and private, and community organizations and whatnot. We have to do it together, and each of us have a role in that process. And one more thing, I think we sustained from the political talks all this today, but I think should be more advocacy involved for both these and ours, from our community, so that there'll be administration changes, regardless of whether we like it or not. But we need proper representation, regardless who's in office, and to continue this fight and this work. So that unity piece is going to be critically important, despite, we talked about the polarization of America today. Hopefully our community doesn't go that direction, and we go inward instead.
Kieran, you had 2 terms. What didn't you get done that you wish you could have done?
I like 1.5, I think, right? So, but I was going to speak to that because, I cut my time short in the sense of spending 6 years leading this amazing initiative to go over to the Office of Personnel Management, which is, the position that I just recently left as director. And coming from that view of running the initiative and also being at the Office of Personnel Management, I think the thing that still needs to happen is, you have a room here of believers and people who get it, many of them in the federal government. But there's so much work to do to really get this to kind of steep all the way down, to really every function, every individual in government to kind of truly appreciate what it means and what it takes to serve the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander community. Now, I'm not saying this is required of everyone, and not to say that there aren't people really dedicated to the work in our community, but it's 2.2 million individuals in the federal government, and I think we've made major headway through Crystal and her team around the focus on equity and justice, and ensuring that agencies are thinking about these kinds of projects and efforts that are putting our community at the center. But and I will speak to this as leading an agency. It does not, it is not in every conversation. It is not always being thought about the way it should. And so I would see that, Chris, as the real progress of continuing to build on the work that we're doing. It's not going to happen overnight. I think I'm sure Shamina and many of her colleagues, I remember when the initiative started, I had my first job in the federal government as a career civil servant, and I remember the initiative being created. I remember meeting Lisa and hearing about this initiative and being pulled into all this work, and I think there is so much more that we can look forward to, and I think a lot of that is not only the education that needs to happen in the federal government, but to what you were saying, which is like more and more people who look like us, who bring kind of the perspectives of our community. I mean, the biggest thing that I looked for when I hired my team was people that actually knew the community and felt indebted to the community, and that's our amazing commissioners. And I actually listened to what you said and didn't call out individuals, and now I feel like the bad person because I'm being ungrateful, but I would like to recognize Daphne Kwok here, who is two-term chair of the commission and was really my partner in crime on this work. So that's kind of what I see going forward.
Tina, what are the unfinished issues that we should be focusing on?
And if you don't mind that I pivot just a little bit from that question.
Everyone else has, why not?
I answered your question. We answered your question, didn't we?
But just, in 25 years, when we gather again and we celebrate the 50th anniversary, right? I am certain we will not be sitting in the Andrew Mellon Auditorium, but we will be celebrating in the National Asian Pacific American Museum of History and Culture. Without a doubt. And I mean, I'm really honored to be on appointed to that commission by Senator McConnell. And the work that we have ahead of us, it's gonna take everyone in this room, and we're at the starting gate. But I know that will help further. I mean, that goes along with the theme of building bridges into the future and the legacy that we're leaving, and having that physical space where we can honor these heroes on the stage here and in the audience, the work that you all have done, be able to reflect on the history, the celebration of it, and also the lamenting on the adversities that have happened before us. I mean, I think that's going to help us further institutionalize our part in the federal government, and I think that's another issue too, right? You've heard us tell how many times we've had to restart with the executive orders and have to restart the commission and the initiative, and I know there's a lot of smart people out there who understand statutes and regulations. Maybe we can figure out how to institutionalize this. I know part of it is, having that museum as part of the Smithsonian. We're being celebrated in how Asian Americans have made the country it is today. We need to be part of that story, all AA and NHPIs. And I also think about just the legacies that are being left here and the legacy planning. I'm Chinese, Taiwanese American, so I always defer to my elders. I cannot do that. But I also want to encourage the Gen Zers, even the millennials, and my kids are alphas, to continue to carry that torch. Because when we talk about bridging, the bridges, and it's not just about the various backgrounds and interests that we all have, but it's also about generations. And we need to empower the next generations to rise up, because in 25 years, they're who are going to be sitting here on this stage, and we need to be part of empowering them and preparing them for that future and that work ahead. So.
Crystal, you get the last word. So 25 years from now, when you're sitting where Shamina is, you walk that necklace down to the current executive director. What will you, where do you see this initiative? What do you think the lasting legacy should be?
I want to see this continue to grow, and so much of what we have built has been looking at what was built over the past 25 years. And Kieran in particular, I want to thank you. Kieran was one of the first conversations I had when I got this job, because we really wanted to build back to what she created under those 7-8 years of the Obama administration through the initiative. It was an incredible model, and it's something that we have tried to emulate in the work we do. But I hope that someone will look at the work that has happened and think beyond. How can we do it bigger? How can we do it better? And how can we continue to deepen the infrastructure? And I think that's something you see, again, 5 administrations represented. We've all had to restart this initiative, every administration. And that doesn't happen overnight. I will say for me, coming in during COVID, people expected so much of us, but I had no staff, I had no funding, we had to start from scratch, right, again. So that's, I think, going to Tina's point, how can we think about how we really institutionalize this work so we're not restarting another 4 or 8 years from now? How can we really sustain this legacy to be impactful without having to restart every couple of years? And I think, again, we have the tools, we have the models to look at. We've been able to really deepen the work that so many of you have built, and I'm just really honored to be able to share the stage with you. I will hold these for safekeeping. You know, and I think, again, I'd like to see just across the board more representation. We are seeing that in government. As Tina mentioned, the museum, that was something that Congresswoman Grace Meng passed as part of her legislation that the president signed into law during Heritage, or actually it was in 2022, so shortly after Heritage Month. But we're seeing progress. But you know, the museum, all of the work that we're doing is going to really take all of us. It's not just the folks on stage, it's not just the government officials or the commissioners. It is truly our community coming together. And I really appreciate what was said about also making sure that younger generations are inspired to continue this work. I know that I myself have been personally inspired by so many giants who have come before me and before us, who have really set the stage for where our community is today. And I just hope that momentum continues to build in the years and decades to come.
Hey, Chris, can we just ask you, since you did serve as co-chair, like a couple of reflections from you?
We're actually out of time, and I'm just the moderator. So, look, thank you all for the terrific conversation. No, I'm serious. Please, we got the 1 minute notice. Please join me in thanking all of them for being here, and most importantly, for their service. You guys, take a photo. I'm gonna ask the 5 of them to stand together so they get their photo together. We may not have a gathering like this again for a while. Great, thank you all.
Wow, that was a great panel. And I'm going to put Ambassador Lou's resume out to MSNBC and NBC News now. All those different TV hits he's done over the years paying off. Hey, can you believe that we are at the end of this great program? How does everybody feel? Yeah? Are you energized for the next year, the next 25? I started by saying what a journey 25 years has been, and I also meant the journey that each and every one of you has taken. And if you think as to why you are here today, who you are journeying for, can you think of that person? Is it your mom, your dad, your grandparents? And I was thinking myself, my first time down here for this great celebration more than a decade ago, I was taking the bus from New York and I was looking out and going, man, my grandfather, my grandparents, my mom, who's never been to this side of the country, I'm doing it for them. So do that for the next year. Who are you going to encourage to come here and be part of this great community we have? This great Heritage Month that we get to celebrate now for 25 years moving. So go out and have a great Heritage Month. Think of those that you can bring along with you. And for now, have a great May. See you next year.